I just signed my name on a basic military draft paper. But somehow, that tiny signature gave the entire high command of Vidya a massive heart attack. Even their elite special forces went on high alert, locking down in full battle gear. Panic? Not me. I did not sweat this insane, end-of-the-world response. Meanwhile, my deskmate was absolutely frozen with terror, sobbing that he would confess everything to them. He screamed out his confession, leaving every single student nearby gasping in total disbelief. What insane crime did this kid pull to bring out the heavy military? And then, the idiot immediately spilled his guts. He cried about taking sketchy payday loans just to buy randomized loot boxes in video games. It was a brutal debt trap, but he swore he had no idea that borrowing money online was a massive federal offense. This incredibly stupid confession left the entire room staring with their jaws wide open. I just rubbed my forehead in disbelief. Could this idiot not read the room before confessing his tiny money problems? Zero breathing room. Dozens of black rifle barrels aimed right at my head. They ordered me to drop the pack and move. Right next to me, Serafina Frost was happily filming the whole thing. Imagine that. Hundreds of special forces invading a college campus just to arrest one kid. Totally insane. Before long, they dragged me straight into a heavily guarded interrogation room. I just sat there, completely calm, while Director Roderick stared at me with a deadly serious glare. He demanded to know what Caspian Vance did this summer. I just thought about it and stayed quiet. Honestly, I got so bored I fell fast asleep, until Director Roderick marched over and slapped me awake. He told me they got intel that a legendary mercenary codenamed Reborn had suddenly climbed to number 8 in the global rankings. Anytime that international leaderboard shifts, the entire world holds its breath. I just rested my chin on my hand and slowly closed my eyes again. That really annoyed the officers in the room, but Chief Gideon just watched me with deep, calculating eyes. Play along, Caspian Vance. Hearing that, I lazily opened one eye. I asked for real proof that I was reborn, so Director Roderick threw a classified folder right at me. He asked why a Vidya citizen was working as an overseas merc, but I just waved my finger dismissively. I told him I did it for a quick paycheck. Director Roderick looked ready to drag me out and shoot me. Then, I remembered the draft today. With my rather unique background, could I still sign up for the military? His face twitched. You seriously want to enlist? He said that depended entirely on my cooperation with their investigation. I felt I was being incredibly helpful. Director Roderick simply continued his intense interrogation. He told me to explain my summer vacation, so I instantly listed off recovering some stolen military satellite chips, escorting a cartel boss across borders, stealing back classified government files, and casually rescuing a few captured citizens overseas. Oh, and I think I dismantled a major human trafficking ring on my way back. Honestly, the silence in the room was deafening. You could practically hear their brains short-circuiting as they stared at me. After a heavy silence, an officer clapped sarcastically, asking if I believed my own ridiculous lies. He warned me that being rank 8 didn't mean I could lie, but I just reminded him they wanted the truth. I tell the truth and they doubt me. Next, they asked if I had other accomplices. I told them honestly that in my line of work, one man is plenty. Director Roderick's face darkened instantly. He clearly didn't believe a single word I uttered, choosing instead to have his top analyst's profile reborn. They strongly suspected Reborn was a whole squad, not just one guy. Seeing I wouldn't break, Director Roderick finally walked out. Still pressing, the interrogator kept pushing. He brought up a warlord from the Iron Triangle who recently met a brutal end, asking if I was involved. I honestly shook my head. I never even touched the guy. It was his own loyal soldiers who turned on him. At most, I just gave them a tiny nudge to speed things up. The interrogator glared, questioning my logic. So according to you, you did them a massive favor and helped them achieve peace and unity. Naturally, I made a gentleman's agreement with them. They are now completely banned from pushing their sketchy distribution networks anywhere near Vidya. Shouldn't you guys be thanking me? The grumpy interrogator just sneers, sarcasm dripping from his voice. Right, I'll get you a custom-made silk banner first thing tomorrow. Just then, Director Roderick returned, and trust me, his scary attitude had completely melted away. Caspian Vance. A month ago, our special ops team got brutally ambushed, and a rogue, stateless mercenary rescued them with a helicopter. Was that actually you? Resting my chin on my hand, I pretend to think. Oh, that time? I was just passing by, and we are all from Vidya. I couldn't just leave our boys to die, right? Director Roderick keeps pressing, asking if it was truly me. Giving him a sideways glance, I describe 4 commandos in yellow tactical training gear. The location was Turast Bay in Valyria. Director Roderick's face instantly pales as he demands to know who I really am. I lazily reply that I'm Caspian Vance, a college junior. Chief Gideon looks absolutely dead serious. Realizing their interrogation tactics won't work on me, he sighs. They have no choice but to release me and watch my every move. Stretching lazily, I grab my bag and ask if my military enlistment form got wrinkled. The annoyed interrogator just snaps back. No, no. Right then, a journalism major named Serafina Frost, who had been camping outside, spots me and rushes over with her camera rolling, shouting for me to stop. What massive emergency brought an entire SWAT team to hunt you down? Having zero interest in her drama, I pull out my cracked phone and order a quick ride back to campus. Back at school, a bunch of nosy classmates crowd around me. How are you back so soon? Are you an undercover spy? I calmly set my book down and tell them it was a misunderstanding. They got the wrong guy. They don't believe it after that massive police drama, but I just give them a cold stare. Why else would I be here? The students are totally speechless. But get this, I had no idea I was already trending all over the internet. Stepping outside, I immediately spot two girls pointing their phones and recording me from a distance. Heading straight to the recruitment office, I hand my completed military enlistment papers to Director Silas. Silas sets my form aside on a table. He tells me I can sign up, but I better get ready for a heavy political background check. I just nod slightly and walk out. Next morning, I step into the classroom and immediately feel a weird vibe. The usually empty room is now completely packed to the brim. Everybody is staring at me with suspicious, curious eyes, and a few people are even secretly filming me. Ignoring them, I sit down and fall fast asleep on my desk. Suddenly, the old professor loudly taps the blackboard. You over there filming, and Caspian Vance, who is still sleeping. Stand up and answer this problem. My deskmate Barnaby quickly jabs me with his elbow. Half asleep, I stand up and stare at the insanely complex math on the board. The students around me start whispering. With advanced calculus filling the board, they think it's a miracle if I solve it. Half asleep, I casually rattle off the exact answer and explain it for a solid 10 minutes. The old professor nods in absolute amazement. Excellent work, your answer is perfectly correct, but I still have to criticize you. Quit sleeping in that exact posture. It is terrible for your neck, especially when you are facing the cold window draft. You might catch a cold and get facial paralysis. The entire classroom is left completely speechless. He does not even pay attention to your lectures. And you are literally worrying about his posture? The professor then invites me onto his research project, holding up 3 fingers. The students immediately start whispering in envy. 3 grand? Well, that is not bad money for a broke college student. Barnaby sighs with deep, salty resentment. You missed a zero, buddy. Everyone's faces completely freeze right then and there. Where is the absolute justice in this world? We study our hearts out, and we still can't compete with a guy who literally sleeps through class. I smile and politely decline, telling him I appreciate the offer, but being chained to a lab just isn't my style. That night, I head to my part-time job at the local internet cafe. The guy at the counter hands me a toolbox. Hey kid, check out computers 12, 13, and 2. They keep black screening for absolutely no reason. I grab the tools, and half an hour later, they are all running perfectly fine. Glancing over, I see that Serafina Frost, who had been stalking me, has fallen fast asleep. Slipping into a blind spot, I type in a highly encrypted URL and plug in my external hard drive. Instantly, a massive cascade of digital code floods the screen. A few minutes later, an interface looking like basic chat software popped up on screen. I had not logged in for days, but over 40 clients were already begging to hire me. Then, one specific offer caught my eye. Wipe out the Vorlandia fraud syndicate for $5 million. I couldn't ignore it all. Their victims were my fellow Vidian citizens. I typed back that I accept, but with one condition. The client replied almost instantly. They asked what I wanted, and I demanded 80% of the syndicate's seized cash. They went dead silent before finally typing back. That price is astronomical and the bosses won't agree, they replied. I typed back calmly. I can personally guarantee the complete and utter destruction of every single one of their core members. No one else can offer that because in this underworld, the name Reborn means a 0% failure rate. The client hesitated, then agreed, but demanded a lightning-fast blitzkrieg strike. Without hesitation, I accepted it. The client froze in shock for a long minute before finally replying that they would do things my way. For the next few days, I worked 2 different part-time jobs until midnight. If I wasn't shaking boba at the milk tea shop, I was mopping floors at the local gym. Slowly, the online hype around me began to fade. Just as things calmed down, I got a call from the draft office scheduling my military physical for October 5th. But get this, I had to rewrite my entire schedule, finishing all my jobs by the 3rd, and rushing back by the 4th. After riding several transit buses, I finally reached an abandoned, unfinished building and headed straight down into the basement. Standing before a solid wall, I pulled out a keycard and tapped it against a specific brick. Beep beep. An elevator materialized out of thin air, with a control panel showing 4 floors. I pressed the button for floor 3, and when those doors slid open, it felt like stepping straight into the Matrix. Dozens of monitors and tech gear tracked international black market transactions, constantly refreshing on a central computer. Gave it a quick look, then headed to the second floor to pack my tactical gear. At 2 in the morning, I drove off in a pitch-black Jeep. Meanwhile, the 2 plainclothes detectives tracking me followed my signal to the dorm, only to find the entire room completely empty. A dead phone lay lonely inside the locker. The agents instantly panicked, realizing this kid might have run off to be a mercenary again. They immediately dialed Director Roderick, telling him that their target was officially gone. Director Roderick immediately contacted Chief Gideon over at National Security, asking if they had any active movement on Reborn. Chief Gideon sighed. Nothing. They had exhausted everything just trying to trace his IP. By the next day, I was riding a speedboat halfway across the ocean with my old friend Balthazar behind the wheel. I logged into the account I had not touched in days, only to find a new operation time from my client. Back at headquarters, a red tracking dot on the main monitor started flashing wildly. Reborn is active, and Roderick nervously demanded his exact coordinates. After layers of intense decryption, they locked onto my coordinates right on the Vorlandia border. If he is there, war is about to break out. The officers from National Security, Director Xiao, and the public security team all huddled together in sheer panic. Why is he running over there? They wondered. Just as an alert showed a massive fortune leaving Reborn's account. Tracing the funds, they realized it went straight to one of the Vorlandia fraud syndicate's hidden accounts. But before they could even connect the dots, Reborn's account instantly received that exact same massive sum back. Meanwhile, I was tracing their digital path to inject an ILP virus. Now watch, their entire system instantly goes into a catastrophic meltdown. Next, I leaped straight into the open ocean, while Balthazar muttered in shock. We are still 5 nautical miles from the coast. Caspian Vance, you absolute lunatic. He actually swam the rest of the way. A total monster. Deep inside Vorlandia, I single-handedly flipped the syndicate upside down. Their network was dead. Key buildings were blown to kingdom come. And the dozens of armed mercenaries hired by the syndicate never even caught a glimpse of my shadow. See? 3 years ago, I bound myself to a system. Complete 1,000 push-ups. Reward, perfect 100% marksmanship. The more broken skills I collected, the more completely overpowered I became. Starting from catching petty street thieves, I climbed all the way to 8th on the international mercenary leaderboards. With dozens of god-tier skills in my arsenal, I had zero fear crashing this syndicate party entirely solo. Continuous explosions rocked the entire Vorlandia fraud syndicate compound. Suddenly, a lackey standing next to Boss Viper sways and collapses. Clutching his briefcase, the terrified boss huddles up and looks around frantically. Let's talk, I'll give you cash. And check this out, another henchman drops dead right as I step out wearing full tactical armor. If you knew this day would eventually come, why did you even do it? The syndicate boss turns to complete jelly, stammering about me being the legendary mercenary Reborn. He does not know my face, but this tactical gear is an unmistakable trademark. Shaking uncontrollably, the terrified boss begins kowtowing on the floor. He begs for his life, promising every single penny. But my stare remains cold as ice. Do you really think human lives can just be measured by numbers? The next second, bang. He slumps over in sheer horror. Save your words of repentance for the Grim Reaper, I say. Then, I whip out my phone and snap a few artistic photos of the dead boss to preserve the proof. Next, I stroll right into the main office and initiate refunds, sending 3 years of scammed cash back to the victims. 3 days later, every surviving syndicate member is either wrapped in thick bandages or hobbling around on crutches. Over 100 people stand miserably in the central plaza as I climb onto a car roof with a giant megaphone. Have you finally realized your mistakes? The entire crowd shouts back in perfect, terrified unison. We were wrong, they scream. We will never do it again. So I tell them I sent their profiles to the police. The authorities will be arriving soon to take you all on a nice long vacation behind bars. The crowd lets out a massive wail of absolute despair, but this base is too good to go to waste. Starting today, you are getting a brand new career. Strong guys, line up here. Quick, agile ones, line up over there. Fast reflexes, over there. Then I add, lazy as ever, now turn these offices into a hotel. The strong ones are porters carrying tourist luggage at the docks. The agile ones are the new cleaning crew. The fast ones will drive tourists around the country. Looking at me, the entire crowd is completely dumbfounded. I am basically turning a crime empire into a minimum wage labor camp. Any objections? I ask. narrowing my eyes. They shake their heads so fast, they look like bobbleheads, crying out that they would never dare. That very day, local news broadcasts a shocking headline about the region's biggest fraud syndicate officially going bankrupt. The remaining 100-plus members have opened a hotel and are currently doing community service by picking up trash. Over at the National Security Bureau, the entire staff stares at the footage in dead silence. October 4th, 10 p.m. Switching to my final ride, I was starting to get pretty impatient. Driver, you are slower than an old ox plowing a field. Move over. Let me drive. The driver's sluggish, talking and driving are too slow, and he protests that he cannot let me drive. He says it is embarrassing to let me drive, but I just yank him into the back seat. I floor it to 150, and honestly, you cannot blame these passengers for losing their minds. They beg me to slow down, but my mind is totally locked onto tomorrow morning's physical exam. Driving like a total bat out of hell, I compress a 12-hour trip into just 5 hours. One passenger shakily points a finger, crying out that riding with me costs lives, not cash. Ignoring them completely, I grab my bags and sprint all the way, reaching my apartment by 6 a.m. After hiding my tactical weapons, I shower, change, and head to the dorm, where a groggy Barnaby glances at me. He mutters that he must be dreaming, wondering how on earth Caspian Vance are already back. I just shake my head. Do not forget the 9 a.m. physical, I warn him, before grabbing a shared bike and pedaling to recruitment. Right as I arrive, the roll call starts, with the officer calling out Barnaby's name. I wonder if that idiot is going to blow this off. Suddenly, a figure comes panting and crashing to a halt right in front of Director Silas. He wheezes that he is late. Silas glares, telling him he is 5 minutes late. Does someone with no concept of time even deserve to be a soldier? Barnaby apologizes profusely. He promises this is the absolute last time before stepping into formation behind me, grinding his teeth. Hey you punk, why did you leave without me? I just gave him a cool side-eye glance. Wait for you so we could both be late together? Barnaby's face flushed bright red. He mumbled about staying up way too late, playing video games and failing to wake up this morning. I sighed helplessly. Barnaby, honestly, I think you should use that online loan money to get your brain checked instead of buying more game skins. The military physical exam dragged on until 3 p.m. Just as I was about to grab some food with Barnaby, Director Roderick intercepted me. With no other choice, I followed him into his car. Caspian Vance, where did you run off to? I was resting at home. Roderick just sneered. Is your home in Vlandia? I kept a poker face. Vlandia's environment is quite nice, I replied. Might even retire there in the future. Roderick glared coldly at me. Cut the smartass attitude with me right now. He then handed me a local news report. On screen, the same vicious thugs who used to wield machetes were now holding brooms and sweeping the streets. Someone was nervously filming them from afar, terrified that a heavy broom would be thrown at their face the next second. But the gang, looking like they were injected with adrenaline, turned directly to the camera and chanted that protecting the environment is everyone's responsibility. This absolutely bizarre sight completely terrified the nearby pedestrians, who ran for their lives. Seeing this, I couldn't help but chuckle. Their execution is pretty solid. Director Roderick narrowed his eyes. I knew it was you pulling the strings. I just shrugged it off as a casual side quest. That night, I headed back home. Once I submitted the photos, the mission was officially complete. But wait, I had to remind them to leave a 5-star review. I'm only 3 stars away from ranking up. They promised a 5-star review and even offered to introduce some clients in the future. Feeling incredibly generous, I promised them a 20% discount next time. The next morning, I was once again fast asleep right at my desk. Suddenly, Barnaby poked me hard with his elbow, waking me up to tell me my old friend was back. I yawned and glanced at the door, only to see the familiar face of Chief Gideon. Why am I having nightmares before I'm even fully awake? Chief Gideon smiled, mentioning that I had quite a busy October holiday. I just yawned again in response. It was quite fulfilling, I muttered. He noted I was so busy I barely slept, then handed over a confidential document, showing Reborn's login location history. Seeing this document instantly shocked me wide awake. Caspian, you rush back just for the physical. You must take this seriously. Hearing that, I immediately straightened up. Mercenary work was just a part-time gig. Becoming a real soldier was my actual main quest. Chief Gideon chuckled. Let's be straight, your background check won't pass with this identity. I stubbornly pressed him on it. Are you sure? After all, I didn't commit any domestic crimes. Chief Gideon stared in silence. The fact that we haven't locked you up yet means you should thank your lucky stars. The Vidian military does not allow potential hidden threats. I let out a soft chuckle. What a pity then. With that, I walked out, leaving them staring solemnly at my file in a complete daze. Suddenly, Director Silas's phone rang in the recruitment office. Silas, it is Commander Reginald. Do you still remember me? Director Silas immediately snapped to attention with deep respect, answering that of course he remembered him. Do you have any instructions for me today? The voice on the other end chuckled. Silas, I won't beat around the bush. We want Caspian Vance. Director Silas was utterly flabbergasted by the request. Are you planning to transfer him directly under your command? No. This kid is a total wild card with an ego through the roof. He needs to be thrown into the regular military to grind down his massive arrogance, Silas was told. Specifically, his identity as the legendary mercenary Reborn. Commander Reginald replied calmly that he knew far more about that than Silas did. Just pass him. I will take full responsibility for the rest. Meanwhile, ever since returning from Chief Gideon's office, I felt pretty depressed. Today was the day the draft results would finally drop. Barnaby dragged me out of bed bright and early, yelling that it was 8 o'clock. I just rolled over and kept lying flat. I figured I was a lost cause, and didn't want to check. But Barnaby kept whining about the site lagging after refreshing 8 times. He screamed he was dying of anxiety, completely waking me up with his constant, loud whining. Our university's recruitment group chat was already flooded with hundreds of messages, with people spamming the inquiry link every few minutes. I casually entered my info, login successful. Suddenly, my pupils dilated and my upper body shot straight up like a spring. Somehow, I passed. Just then, an earth-shattering howl erupted from the lower bunk as Barnaby started crying massive tears. I actually became a soldier. Same camp, too. Honestly, I was pretty shocked I even passed. After all that brutal grinding, my wish finally came true. Time to honorably protect Vidya. 3 days later, I packed my bags to report for duty and joined the main caravan. On the train, everyone started mingling. We had 132 recruits total, with 34 college kids. Barnaby was a social butterfly. He walked through the train car once and somehow got on a first-name basis with almost everyone. I spent the entire ride buried in a book instead. A few hours later, we finally arrived at the 76th Group Army Ground Force Training Base. Everyone dragged baggage, looking around like total country bumpkins in the big city as the reception officer, Captain Jackson Briggs, introduced the entire base layout. No visiting the mess hall outside of meal hours. Dorms are in Building 3. The place looked great with a mountain out back, where they apparently raised quite a few sheep and poultry. The culinary squad handled all of that. Meanwhile, we lugged our heavy gear for an hour. Everyone was panting, sweating absolute buckets, but we gritted our teeth and endured it, until the captain finally led us back to Building 3. These were 8-person dorm rooms. Barnaby and I got assigned to the same room. I was about to drop my bag on the lower bunk near the door, but some guy beat me to it. Great spot. I will take this one, he sneered. Keeping a straight face, I tried to grab the other lower bunk, only for someone else to instantly claim that one, too. That was when I realized these guys were actively targeting me. Luckily, Barnaby managed to secure a bunk and waved at me frantically. Sleep here, Caspian, he gestured. With one quick leap, I vaulted onto his upper bunk. And just like that, the real drama begins. Serious bad blood was already brewing. Once we unpacked, squad leader Leon Cross marched in to lay down the law. Every single wash basin had to be aligned in a perfect, straight row. All locker tops must be wiped completely spotless, with strict daily inspections starting from now on. Then, he handed us the regulation manuals, ordering us to memorize the entire thing. We had to start with Chapter 1 on general principles. Once the squad leader left, the other 6 guys immediately started stressing. Our entire afternoon was packed with assemblies, meals, and organizing the room. Zero study time. There was absolutely no way a check would happen past midnight, so they just gave up. While they decided to just sleep, I grabbed my manual and quietly slipped out, with Barnaby following close behind. Will he really check us? Barnaby whispered. I shrugged. Anything can happen here. Besides, we were both top scholars from Seacoast University anyway, so memorizing this stuff was basically absolute child's play. Before long, we ran right into Julian Pierce, the jerk who stole my bunk earlier. He was that classic type of guy who refuses to study and tries to drag everyone else down with him. Sneaking out at midnight to study like total nerds, he mocked. I just ignored him. In any race, the lazy, greedy pig runs slowest. Guess what happens to him? He gets butchered. With that, I walked back to the dorm, leaving a completely stunned Julian fuming in the hallway. He was furious. I compared him to a pig. Next morning, the horn blasted. Instead of a delicious breakfast, we were met with a massive, painfully slow queue, stretching outside the mess hall. Out of nowhere, Sergeant Leon Cross announced that only those who could recite Chapter 1 of the regulations would eat. Shout report if you know it, Otherwise, just stand there and smell the food. From the back of the line, I watched my squadmates sigh in absolute despair. But of course, that jerk Julian just had to make a move. Here comes the trap. Caspian Vance knows it, he yelled, making Leon Cross instantly frown. Why are you speaking for him? Leon growled, before walking up and challenging me to prove it right then. I recited the entire chapter with absolute and complete clarity, flowing so smoothly that it literally sounded like I was reading directly from the page. Leon raised his eyebrows in genuine surprise, pointing at me to show the others exactly what a passing grade looks like. He sent me inside while the others gritted their teeth, glaring bitterly at my back. Awesome. Day 1 in the squad. And I had already made bitter enemies. Thankfully, Barnaby managed to scrape by, stumbling but passing. Behind us, dozens of starving recruits stood outside, glaring murderously while frantically trying to memorize their manuals just to get a bite to eat. Right after breakfast, Instructor Gareth Black expressionlessly announced their physical training a 5-kilometer cross-country run. Time limit 40 minutes. Anyone who fails gets sheep pen duty today, which instantly gave Julian and his buddies a massive confidence boost. What can those useless bookworms even do besides memorize textbooks? But Sergeant Leon drags Julian to the back of the line, telling him that since he loves talking, he can be the counter. Every sigh or groan adds a minute to their runtime. Now let us see who actually cleans those sheep pens. With a sharp whistle, the jog around the back mountain begins. I was stuck near the rear, just a few paces ahead of Julian. It starts easy, but 20 minutes in, the physical toll really begins to hit. How far have we even gone? I am so tired. My legs are cramping. Julian is completely wiped out, but he still smugly draws tally marks on the backs of anyone complaining. Seriously, what a jerk. Barnaby is already gasping like a broken bellows, completely out of breath. Meanwhile, I am completely fine, not even breaking a single sweat. Long-distance running is all about regulating your breathing. Just inhale for 3 steps, then exhale for 3 steps. The recruits behind me start matching my steady rhythm, and slowly, they realize running is actually pretty easy now. Some of them whisper that Caspian is absolutely amazing, but I quickly quiet them down, gesturing back toward Julian. By now, Julian is completely red-faced and gasping, but he still keeps a pretty sinister smirk plastered on his face. Barnaby silently panics, realizing that jerk Julian is absolutely going to target Caspian next. Gradually, our little group glides from the very back right up to the middle, leaving Julian far behind us. The crowd following my pace slowly grows to over 30 people, and to keep everyone together, I practically have to slow down to a brisk walk. We cross the finish line right at the 40-minute mark. 40 minutes is literally the bare minimum passing score, and yet, 8 recruits still failed to make that cut. One of them was Julian Pierce, but the guy still swaggers over and arrogantly hands Sergeant Leon a list. He reports that these are the talkers, and Caspian Vance spoke the absolute most. Leon looks back and forth between us, then reads off Caspian Vance, Jasper Quinn, Caleb Reed, and the 8 who failed the run. He puts them all on sheep pen duty, then lines up the company, saying he already promised the kitchen crew. Our entire recruit company is running the sheep pens for the whole month, making everyone twitch in annoyance. Seriously, couldn't they get a better job? Next up is formation training. And standing at attention takes the entire morning. You can't even stand at ease properly. Are you all just useless trash? Surviving the morning, the recruits shuffle toward the mess hall like zombies, only to get interrogated about military regulations again. The resentment in the air is thick. Inside the mess hall, there is dead silence. Only chopsticks hitting metal trays echo through the room. The food is pretty basic, but they devour every single scrap on their metal plates. Leaving the mess hall, Barnaby asks curiously, "Caspian, are you not tired at all?" I just shrugged. It is basic conditioning, so why would I be? Barnaby stares in utter disbelief. Was this guy somehow possessed by the spirit of an ancient war god? Back at the dorm, we drag our exhausted bodies onto the beds. And of course the whistle immediately blows again, forcing everyone up. My bones are literally breaking, and they won't even let us nap. A crowd of totally depressed recruits gathers downstairs. Captain Jackson Briggs barks that they can't memorize the rules, and their physical stamina is completely pathetic. Are you planning to just deliver bullets to the enemy on the battlefield? Naturally, many recruits feel pretty indignant. They are just fresh recruits, after all, so why hold them to veteran standards? Their anger is written all over their faces. Briggs yells that nobody is resting, and they are going to see real training. The captain leads them to another field, where elite veterans are marching in perfect, highly synchronized goose steps. The thunderous sound of their boots hitting the dirt literally makes the earth tremble. Once the march ends, the front row steps forward in unison, raising their rifles right at the firing line. The instructor blows his whistle, and they all fire in perfect sync, hitting the 10-ring dead center from 500 meters. Finally, seeing the actual rifles they have been dreaming of, the recruits are completely awestruck. They whisper how cool and insane it is, wondering when they will ever reach that level. Meanwhile, I just stand there expressionless. Jackson scoffed coldly. Do you guys see what a real skill gap looks like now with how useless you all are? He tells them not to even dream of reaching this level of marksmanship. Instantly, a few hot-headed recruits mutter defensively. They claim they just joined, and if they trained that long, they would easily be at his level. After all, shooting a gun is easy. Jackson just laughs coldly, telling these confident recruits they should go ahead and challenge the veterans. That immediately fires them up. Fine. Let's do it. Sure, they lack experience, and 500 meters is too far. So Jackson lets them try the 200-meter mark instead. He asks who wants to step up first. Dead silence. Nobody volunteers, but the teasing is loud. Some recruits turn to look at me. Don't hide your skills, go win some glory for us. I just tell them faintly that I have never played with these. They look like ancient relics from my grandmother's era. The guns I use are state-of-the-art tech. Hearing this, Julian sneers sarcastically, asking if they really expect Caspian to pull a miracle out of his hat. Others ask Julian if he has ever touched a gun. They say they have to rely on brother Julian during crunch time. Too bad the actual weight of the rifle takes Julian completely by surprise. See, he's only ever been to fancy shooting ranges and handled lightweight sporting rifles. This heavy metallic mass immediately makes his arms buckle, while I stand to the side, maintaining my perfect poker face. His firing stance is off. Arm tension? Wrong. Then bang. The bullet fails to clear 100 meters before diving into the dirt. I shake my head helplessly. With garbage skills like that, how does he have the absolute nerve to act like our savior? My annoyed look immediately catches his buddy's eye. He snaps, asking what right Caspian Vance has to mock him. At least Julian stepped up. What about you? Before I can even reply, Jackson sharply barks at them. Is this how recruits treat each other, shifting blame and attacking teammates? Are you going to start a literal civil war on the battlefield just because you disagree on where to walk? The scolding leaves them looking like totally wilted leaves. Julian stands there pale and utterly humiliated. Meanwhile, the veterans just stand by, watching the drama with sheer amusement. As the mocking from the crowd grows louder, I suddenly step forward. Let's see how they react to this move. Julian grits his teeth, telling me to get back and stop embarrassing them. The next second, I catch the rifle Jackson tosses my way. From my firm grip to my stance, everything is absolute textbook perfection. The clueless recruits can't tell the difference, mocking me and joking that I probably can't even see the target. But the veterans are deeply shocked by my highly professional stance. Then bang. Everyone instantly cranes their necks to see the target. They wonder if I hit it or just clipped the board. Leon and Jackson immediately raise their binoculars to inspect the target. Jackson asks how I think I performed on that shot. I shrug, telling him it was just average. It is only a measly 200 meters, so I could hit that blindfolded. Naturally, the recruits erupt in loud boos. They tell me I'm about to get humiliated. But Jackson's mouth twitches as he announces the score: 10 rings. The veterans are collectively stunned, while the recruits stare at me as if I were a literal ghost. They mutter that I must have stepped in sheep dung yesterday, because this is just insane beginner's luck. Hearing the chatter, Jackson asks if I dare to try the 300-meter mark. I stay completely silent, pretending to be in deep thought. The recruits assume I've chickened out, whispering that at least I'm smart enough to quit while I'm still ahead. He knows he'd get exposed at 300 meters, Julian chimes in sarcastically. He warns me not to take on jobs I can't handle, or I'll just drag everyone down to take the blame with me. Barnaby can't stand the whining anymore, snapping that this has nothing to do with Caspian, who literally just saved Julian's butt. Right then, I step forward. 300 meters is too easy, make it 500. Now wait, their reactions are absolutely priceless. Is he sleepwalking, they ask, wondering how an arrogant recruit can actually back that up? Barnaby is seriously worried, telling me he knows I want to prove a point, but I'm talking way too big. But Jackson claps his hands in approval, praising my commendable courage and saying he'd love to see if I have the skills. I expressionlessly take the rifle and walk straight to the firing position. I take aim for roughly 5 seconds before instantly pulling the trigger. Then, with a slick motion, I toss the weapon back to Jackson. Everyone has huge question marks floating above their heads. Is it over? Or did he just give up? Jackson lifts his binoculars to check the target, and this time, his entire face just freezes. He looks over at me with this incredibly complicated stare, asking how I think I did. I just give him my usual lazy shrug. Passable, I say. Jackson's mouth twitches violently before he yells out Caspian Vance, 500-meter shot, 10 rings. That instantly petrifies the entire field. The stares they throw my way get pretty damn complicated. We have got some guys looking amused, others curious, and a few intensely jealous. Those 2 insane shots just earned me a brand new title, the recruit company's sniper god. Plus, I naturally acquire a massive horde of fanboys. My little entourage slowly grows from just Barnaby to over a dozen guys, which actually makes Barnaby happier than anyone else. Thank goodness the system gifted me that god-tier marksmanship skill. Over the next few weeks, I become the absolute center of attention. Sure, some jealous teammates still throw sarcastic remarks my way. But strangely enough, why are the squad leader, commander, and instructor targeting me too? You won't believe the insane side quests they throw my way. Like, if others run 5 kilometers, I run 10. If they stand for an hour, I get 10 extra minutes. If they do 500 push-ups, I do 1,000. Even in theory classes, the chance of my name getting called is double anyone else's. At first, people think it's just favoritism. But later, when everyone is tucked into their dorm beds and I'm just limping back with a completely wrecked body, they only have 2 words. Serves you right. That is what you get for showing off. Today, I barely lie down and get half asleep when an assembly whistle suddenly jolts everyone awake. Before my eyes even open, my body's reflexes are already folding my blanket. Carrying some massive, exhausted eye bags, I'm the first one downstairs. Once everyone gathers, Jackson smiles brightly. The recruit company has a special tradition. They hold a celebration party for recruits who have survived their first month. Hearing the words celebration party, everyone's eyes light up. Commander, when does it start? What do we prepare? I can play the guitar. Do we even have a guitar here? Everyone eagerly pitches their talents, but then Jackson adds our daily training routines are fixed. We can only celebrate at night. Everyone instantly deflates, asking if they can please just opt out. We are already dead tired every day. Suddenly, Jackson's face turns dead serious. He snaps, "It is a tradition, meaning it is mandatory. Do you not understand English?" The crowd instantly shuts up. In a split second, you can hear a pin drop. Only then does Jackson smile, saying, "Now, let us go over the party events." It starts exactly at midnight, including military stance holding, a 100-meter sprint, a 400-meter relay, and push-ups. He casually lists over a dozen intense physical competitions. There is not a single thing related to actual entertainment. Everyone looks utterly bewildered, thinking, what the hell is this? A joke? Who is this even supposed to make happy? The veterans? Sure enough, a group of veterans strolls over with sinister, mocking grins. And get this, Jackson actually has the gall to say he prepared an audience for us. Perhaps the collective resentment of the crowd is so powerful, it actually summons a massive rain cloud. The veterans come fully prepared, setting up massive umbrellas on the sidelines, while the recruits have to perform their celebrations standing in the pouring rain. Jackson takes a slow, relaxed sip from his thermos of goji berry tea. He says the competition is divided into individual and group events. The winners get a prize, and we can group up ourselves. At first, they expect a simple test of standing at attention, but things quickly take a turn. The veterans pull out some strings from heaven knows where, tie a row of tiny bells to them, and stake them to the ground across our formation. If anyone moves even an inch, it triggers the bells. They have to hold for 10 minutes, grouped by rows. If a row's bells ring, 2 minutes are added to their time. Meanwhile, the rain gets heavier, soaking everyone to the bone. At the 7-minute mark, someone accidentally triggers a bell. Jackson says calmly, "Row 1, add 2 minutes." Under these brutal conditions, every single second is sheer torture. Jackson watches me curiously, finding that I am like a completely unmoving stone statue. I am standing right in that first row. By the time my teammates endure 10 minutes, many have agonizing expressions on their faces, their legs trembling violently. Right then, the first row's bells ring again. Row 2, add another 2 minutes. That is 6 extra minutes now. Just like that, a simple standing exercise drags on for 20 grueling minutes. When it finally ends, everyone limps away feeling a massive burden lift. The next event is the 100-meter dash. We had to run in groups of 4, taking the average time. My squad got stuck with a guy whose physical coordination was pretty terrible. He was always dead last. The rival group saw him as dead weight, but I just dismissed them. I promised he wouldn't finish last, but my teammate Tobias was still incredibly nervous, desperate not to drag me down. The sprint officially kicked off. Julian's group ran first, shooting forward like absolute lightning. Their average was 12.73 seconds, matching level 3 national athletes. Julian and his crew gave us a cocky look, warning our short teammate to try hard so I wouldn't have an excuse. That short guy was Tobias Wren, a freshman from another local university in the city. Back in high school, he only studied from dawn to dusk, doing the bare minimum for gym, so he always struggled here. He had even secretly cried about it, so I walked over and told him to stay calm. Winning or losing doesn't matter. Just stay behind me, and keep your footing steady. Which deeply moved Tobias as he nodded. The whistle blew, and watch this. I blasted forward like a bullet leaving the chamber. I was basically a shooting star before anyone could even make a wish. I was already across the line, leaving Julian's buddies staring blankly. His friend muttered I was way faster, but the other told him his eyes played tricks. They had no real concept of the time. While Tobias was still hanging his head in absolute guilt, he whimperingly complained about dragging our team down, but I went over and assured him he did great, running much faster than his previous personal bests. Tobias let out a long sigh of relief, waiting anxiously with me for the official results. Caspian Vance's group averaged 12.39 seconds. The moment that result dropped, the entire scene descended into utter chaos. Tobias was leagues behind, yet our group beat Julian. Everyone yelled that it was rigged. Jackson fired a blank in the air. Bang. Instant silence. Barnaby 12.52, Rowan 12.72, Tobias 13.1, Caspian 11.2. Tobias's eyes bulged. He actually broke into 13 seconds, when he usually ran 14. No way. Caspian ran 11.2 seconds, that is literally level 1 national speed. One god carrying the entire squad. Jackson smiled. Only he noticed that I intentionally slowed down right before the line. What was my real top speed? Either way, Tobias was completely hooked and followed me everywhere. He made a firm resolution to become my #1 lackey. In the following 400-meter relay, we broke the record again. Julian's crew got 51.98, while the others were over 52. I did quick mental math. As long as we broke 50 seconds, we'd win. And with my encouragement, Tobias actually improved even more. I practically coasted, crossing right at the 50-second mark, making the veteran grunt. My group finished in 50.3 seconds, and a veteran whispered that I slowed down on purpose. I merely smiled and said nothing. By 4 a.m., the freezing rain was pouring down even harder. Everyone thought it was over, hoping to grab 2 hours of sleep, but then Jackson waved his hand grandly. He announced we hadn't marched in rain, so we were getting a lesson today. The entire crowd erupted in a collective wail of agony, their soaking wet clothes clinging tightly to their bodies. With every single step, they felt the heavy, wet fabric sliding against their skin. At first, everyone maintained a light jog, but slowly, the leader's pace dropped, dragging us forward like snails. We exhaustedly reached the destination just before 5:30 a.m., but the place was empty, leaving only a note behind. Opening it, they were completely speechless. It said since we forgot our rucksacks, this didn't count as a loaded march. Luggage standard 25 kilograms. Everyone flipped the paper in disbelief. What does this even mean? Did the ink wash off? Or are we literally supposed to march back to grab 25 kilograms of luggage? I looked thoughtful, immediately scanning the entire area. Activating my eagle eye skill, I carefully surveyed the perimeter and noticed quite a few tools scattered around, smiling as I realized their plan. Rowan asked if I knew what it meant, so I explained my view. We had to carry 25 kilograms of dead weight, no matter what it was. Wood, rocks, or bricks should all be usable. My voice wasn't loud, but quite a few people heard it. Someone frowned and questioned if we'd just end up carrying heavy garbage for absolutely nothing if I was wrong. Wasn't it much more likely a hint for us to go back and retrieve our actual gear? Barnaby and Tobias ignored the doubts around us, stating firmly that they would follow my lead no matter what. Gradually, more and more people stepped up, and soon, half the group decided to trust me. I calmly told them that I spotted some sandbags and rocks on the path over here. We need a few guys to go back and fetch them. 5 people immediately volunteered, saying they would go. Then I pointed to 2 nearby trees. There are actually 2 axes embedded in those trunks. At this point, people vaguely felt the trees looked a bit odd, but they could not put their finger on why. Soon, everyone gathered all the materials around me. Only then did they notice the sandbags were clearly marked 10 kilograms, and those oddly shaped rocks were all suspiciously uniform in weight. Caspian Vance and his crew stared at the massive pile of materials. They realized I was probably right, but their pride would not let them admit it. They stubbornly sneered, "I highly doubt, that is it. There is definitely another way." I distributed the weight among everyone, leaving just a few rocks left over. I weighed the axes in my hand. They were not useless after all, being surprisingly heavy and easily making up the remaining 10 pounds together. But get this inside the surveillance room. Jackson and Gareth were watching our live feed with intense focus. This kid Caspian has some real brains. He actually deciphered that hidden meaning right away. In past years, only a handful of recruits ever truly grasped the real intention. He has got serious leadership potential. When our group of dozens neared the bottom of the mountain, we bumped into Caspian and his crew trudging dejectedly back up. I planned to just walk right past them, but someone behind me spoke up first. "Is that Brother Caspian? Why are you heading back?" Do not tell me you are copying us and looking for bags to fill with rocks. No way, right? You have so many brilliant ideas. Those mocking remarks made Cassian clench his fists and glare at me. Caspian and Vance, just you wait. I gave him a dismissive glance, wondering what this had to do with me. You cannot blame others for being smart just because you are stupid. As soon as our group reached the bottom, we saw Leon standing next to a massive scale. Put your packs on the scale, only those who pass can leave. Proudly, they placed their makeshift weights on the scale, looking smug. And everyone passed. Go eat, there should still be food left. It was already 9:30 a.m., well past normal breakfast hours. From noon yesterday until now, we had not slept for nearly 20 hours. We were absolutely starving and exhausted. We were hoping for an absolute feast, only to find leftover slop and soup in the mess hall. Is this a nightmare? Please, let me wake up. Suddenly, someone laughed. Hey, at least we have something to eat. By the time Cassian and his group get back, there will not even be soup left. With that simple comparison, the gross slop suddenly looked like a Michelin star meal. They dumped the leftover soup over their rice, scarfed it down like starving wolves, then returned to the dorm and passed out immediately. But just 2 hours later, Barnaby and I were rudely awakened by a massive racket. It turned out Cassian and his group had just finished their punishment march. Seeing us sleeping soundly in our beds made them incredibly bitter, so they deliberately made a ton of noise. I shot him a flat look and closed my eyes again. Barnaby got pissed, yelling, "Can you keep it down? We are trying to sleep." Cassian like with venomous sarcasm, "Have you not slept enough? I was just worried you would miss the mess hall and starve. I am just being kind." Then he walked right up to my bed. "Are you getting a kick out of seeing me look so pathetic?" I said with zero expression, "You are misunderstanding. Because I feel absolutely nothing towards you." Cassian was enraged that I did not even put him in my sights. The afternoon was finally shooting practice. The babies everyone had been dreaming of arrived. But at first, the guns were completely empty. They just practiced holding the stance to get a feel for it. Holding it for over 10 minutes, their arms inevitably began to droop. Whenever that happened, Jackson and Gareth would brutally smack their arms with disciplinary rulers, barking at them to tighten those arms. Are you planning to shoot the dirt? With this posture, you are only qualified to play whack-a-mole. While everyone was wincing in pain from those ruler smacks, guess who was the only one who never got hit? Jackson stood right next to me several times, but I remained as completely immovable as a mountain. Unable to find a single flaw, he could only go find trouble with the others. Barnaby sidled up to me and whispered, "Caspian, not cool. You have a secret technique, and you are not sharing it with your bros." Jackson overheard our whispering and smiled wickedly. "Caspian, you are all peers here. Your techniques are clearly practical, so share them with the class." Looking at Jackson's smug smile, I mentally cursed his ancestors. What technique do I even have? Does years of firing live ammo on the front line count as a technique? Does experience built on a mountain of corpses count as a technique? I had no choice but to calmly spout complete nonsense. When I was a kid, I liked to pee with my arms spread wide out, holding 2 water jugs filled to the brim. If my hands ever shook, I would punish myself by holding them completely still all afternoon. In college, I hit the gym to lift heavy barbells since holding a weapon is just pure arm strength. Barnaby listened to every word, nodding along like it all made complete sense. But when I brought up the gym, he knew something was off. Leaning in, he whispered, "Caspian, didn't you work part-time daily? When did you have time for working out?" Jackson shot me a playful smirk, waiting to hear my excuse. I gritted my teeth and replied, "During holidays." Hearing that, Barnaby clapped in sudden realization. "Ah, so that is why you vanished every holiday to go lift." I let out a quick sigh of relief. Luckily, Barnaby is easy to trick. I claimed I ran marathons, which Tobias immediately believed. "No wonder you run so fast. It is definitely from the marathons." Jackson gave a playful smirk and gave me a thumbs up. To the others, that gesture meant the captain officially approved of my training. As soon as magazines were loaded with live ammo, a heavy silence settled over the crowd. Gareth announced that for our first live shoot, we did not need a perfect bullseye, just graze the board. 10 recruits lined up to aim. "It is only 50 meters, how hard can it be?" Gareth glanced at the bragging recruits. "Think 50 meters is easy? Let us see if you can even graze the board first." Everyone slowly raised their weapons, bringing eyes to the scopes. If their arms shook even slightly, the crosshairs would drift completely off. Just trying to aim had them sweating bullets. Gareth shouted a few quick tips and started the countdown. 3, 2, 1, fire. The shots were scattered. A few guys did not even shoot. Those who did fire looked completely shell-shocked, arms numb from recoil. Gareth walked up to the recruits who had not shot. "Why did you not shoot?" They hesitated. "We had not locked onto the target yet." In the military, obeying orders is the highest priority. Reload and fire. The best score out of 10 was a measly 7 rings. 3 people completely missed. Do you still think 50 meters is easy? The first batch shook their heads in unison. Caspian, it is all your fault for making it look easy. You made us think shooting was a breeze. When my group stepped up, things got weird. Gareth pulled me to the very edge of the firing line. While everyone else aimed at 50 meters, mine was set to a crazy 600. Everyone's jaws hit the floor. I knew the contrast would be crazy. But this handicap is insane. Is this the skill gap we are starting with? Did Caspian unlock the 50-meter achievement while in the womb? Jealousy slowly morphed into pure, absolute awe. Even Cassian stared at me with incredibly complicated feelings. Helplessly, I took the rifle Gareth handed me, taking the exact same stance. I stood dead still. 3, 2, 1, fire. Bang, bang, bang. This time, everyone fired at once. 2 guys hit 10 rings, while only one missed the board completely. Everyone craned their necks, waiting for my score. Gareth slowly dragged out the suspense. Caspian Vance. 600 meters. 10 rings. Instantly, the crowd erupted for this undisputed sniper god. Gareth added Caspian. What other shooting techniques do you have to share with everyone? I took a deep breath and agreed. But the moment I turned around, my expression darkened. The captain and the instructor were clearly trying to make things hard. I just wanted a quiet military service. 3 months flew by. In a flash, it was time for our final assignments. Over time, Cassian had gradually let go of his hostility. For our final assignments, everyone received a preference form. I ended up writing a choice. Nobody expected the recon company. Inside Jackson Briggs's office, Captain Thaddeus Stone of the Sharpshooters and Captain Lysander Cole of Recon were arguing until red in the face. Caspian is a generational talent whose shooting fundamentals are flawless. He belongs in our sharpshooter company. Ever heard the saying, a forced melon is not sweet? He chose us, so your whining is useless. Old G poached your best sniper years ago, and you still hold a grudge. You know damn well he poached him. Back then, he was exactly like Caspian, dead set on recon. God knows what lies you fed him. Jackson's ears were ringing from their shouting. Stop, both of you. You two argue like children, but Caspian might not even want either. That night, I was called into Jackson's office. Upon entering, I saw a man on the sofa wearing senior officer insignia. I immediately and respectfully saluted him. Good evening, sir. Jackson nodded and smiled, saying he had reviewed the preference form. You want to join recon? Caspian nods as Jackson adds that his marksmanship is the absolute best. He says that if Caspian wants specialized training, the sharpshooter company is a perfect fit. Captain Lysander Cole shoots Jackson a freezing glare. Caspian looks at both officers and calmly explains that he wants to become a much more well-rounded soldier. Recon tests a soldier's overall abilities, and Jackson nods in agreement. He introduces Lysander Cole as the recon captain who wanted a word, and Caspian quickly salutes him. After a respectful greeting, Lysander looks Caspian over with growing satisfaction, letting out a warm chuckle. He welcomes Caspian to the recon company early, but points out he only ever beat second place by a tiny margin. Believing Caspian was hiding his true limits, the captain listens as Caspian smoothly blames it all on pure luck. Lysander laughs dryly, calling him the type who only works hard enough to beat his competition. He asks if Caspian would ever leave, immediately making Caspian think of the sharpshooter unit Jackson brought up. Talk about a massive glow-up back in college. He was an invisible nobody, but now everyone is fighting over him. The recon unit remains his ultimate goal, because joining the special forces requires a soldier to be completely versatile. Jackson dryly points out that elite sharpshooting skills are absolutely critical to survive in the special forces. Caspian smiles faintly, saying shooting is no challenge at all. That confident reply makes Jackson want to jump up and smack him, completely annoyed by how cocky Caspian is just because he dominated the running and fitness trials. Lysander from the recon company definitely did not expect Caspian's stance to be this solid. Excited, he starts talking trash about Captain Stone, making it sound like he is reporting directly to Caspian. Jackson has to fake a couple of loud coughs to shut him up. Once Caspian leaves, Lysander slams his hand on the desk, calling Jackson out for fence-sitting despite their years of friendship. But Jackson just sighs shamelessly. Jackson explains that Captain Stone gave him 2 tins of premium tea, so he had to help him pitch. Lysander grits his teeth, asking if Jackson really sold out for some tea, abandoning his dignity and moral baseline. Jackson looks away guiltily, muttering that they are all in the same military district anyway. Since they are one big family, he argues it doesn't really matter which unit Caspian joins. Jackson's voice trails off as he loses his nerve, while Lysander points a shaking, silent finger at him in absolute fury. Finally, Lysander grabs Jackson's freshly brewed cup of hot tea and ruthlessly dumps it. He pours it right over Jackson's prized plant before storming out, leaving Jackson staring mournfully at the mess. Mourning his ruined flower, Jackson complains that Caspian better stick to his choice after a plant died for him. The following day, Caspian is summoned right back to Jackson's familiar military office. But this time, a new officer is waiting, Captain Thaddeus Stone from the Sharpshooter Company, who immediately gets to business. He tells Caspian that with his incredible marksmanship, he belongs in the Sharpshooter unit for advanced training. Knowing Caspian aims for the Special Forces, Thaddeus points out that any company can serve as a stepping stone. But Caspian holds his ground, politely thanking Captain Stone for the generous appreciation. He explains he still prefers recon, but if they force him into sharpshooting instead, he will follow orders. He won't rebel against direct military orders, but after thanking him, Caspian leaves, leaving Thaddeus completely confused. Thaddeus asks if Caspian is actually considering them, but Jackson sighs and explains the kid was just saving his face. He got rejected politely but firmly, sending Thaddeus into a rage as he snatches his 2 tins of tea back on his way out. Calling it a waste of good tea, Thaddeus storms off with Jackson chasing right behind him. I mean, can you blame Jackson for trying? But yeah, he completely failed to please either side here. Having upset both commanders, assignments are finalized a few days later, sending Barnaby and Tobias to the artillery company. Surprisingly, Caspian's dorm mate Cassian goes to sharpshooters, while Caspian and Rowan Brooks are assigned to the recon company. Hearing the news, Rowan literally jumps for joy, feeling totally safe with Caspian around. Despite only knowing each other for 3 months, Tobias is incredibly sad to part ways with his friend. The only reason he made it this far was because of Caspian's constant protection and encouragement. Now that they are separated, Tobias feels lost, but Caspian quickly comforts him, saying they will have plenty of chances to meet. Our assignments depend on our individual strengths, and I hope we all meet again as the absolute elite of our new companies. If anyone ever needs help, we are just one call away. A vow everyone firmly repeated. Just one call away. With those words in mind, we packed our bags that night and headed out to report for duty. Heading to our recon company, Rowan was buzzing with excitement, totally hyped. He mentioned we are in 1st Platoon, 2nd Squad, sharing a room with veterans, wondering if they might try to haze us to establish dominance. His constant babbling gave me a headache, so I told him to just focus on doing what must be done, and ignore the rest. Rowan nodded eagerly, claiming he felt completely safe with me around and feared absolutely nothing now. When we arrived, the barracks were empty since the veterans were out training. Spotting 2 free bunks, Rowan claimed a bottom one. My gear went on the top bunk right above him. Just as we finished settling in, the veteran squad marched back inside. We introduced ourselves immediately. Caspian Vance. Rowan Brooks. Hearing my name, their eyes locked onto me as a few began to mockingly ask if I was that god-tier marksman. They asked why a top recruit was slumming it in recon, and honestly, Rowan was shaking seeing how tense things got. He gave me a nervous look, but I just calmly thanked them all for their incredibly high praise. Rowan was completely speechless, asking how on earth I heard that as a compliment, when they were clearly targeting me. My unbothered reaction totally threw the seniors off, leaving their aggressive verbal jab landing uselessly on soft cotton. They clarified they were not praising me, just testing my skills, as I simply offered a polite smile. I thanked them for caring and promised to do my best, leaving them staring at the ceiling, wondering if I even understood human speech. Obviously, I understood them perfectly, but playing dumb was the easiest way to avoid useless drama. Still, they were absolutely determined to pick a fight, with Corporal Wyatt Kane pointing directly at Rowan's freshly made bed. He demanded who gave us permission to sleep there, making Rowan nervously ask if they were off limits. We just saw empty beds and took them, Rowan stammered, but Wyatt snapped that those bunks were reserved for the veterans to lounge on. Wyatt ordered us to move our gear immediately. Intimidated by the scolding, Rowan started packing, but I quickly stepped in. I asked if the other empty bunk was off limits too, making Wyatt raise an eyebrow and claim they lounged on both. He told us rookies to take the top bunks instead. Obviously, there was absolutely no military rule forcing recruits to sleep on top. The other veterans burst out laughing, completely doubled over with amusement. They asked if I knew the military rule of absolute obedience to seniors, but I just shook my head, noting we share the same rank. Listening to you is a courtesy, but respect is a two-way street, so do not act like some entitled boomer. Wyatt's eyebrow twitched violently. With a quick signal, they locked the door and shut the windows, trapping us inside. Rowan instantly realized what was happening, shrinking back behind my shoulders in absolute terror. When I mentioned brawling is strictly banned, they sneered that they were just showing some friendly guidance to their new rookies. I asked if they were completely sure this was not fighting, while they menacingly cracked their knuckles in response. They claimed nobody here would see a fight, which made me sigh in relief and say I felt much better then. They blanked. And honestly, they had no idea what was coming next. Before they could react, I grabbed Wyatt Kane by the collar, flipped him a full 180 degrees, and slammed him hard onto the floor. Their smug smiles instantly froze. The dazed Wyatt lay there, completely failing to process what just happened. Rowan stood there with his jaw on the floor. My speed was blindingly fast, yet controlled enough to keep the guy from cracking his skull open. I had held onto his collar tightly, ensuring the senior's backside took the brunt of the impact. I flashed a warm smile. No fighting, just friendly guidance, right? Cold shivers ran down their spines. Snapping out of it, the others rolled up their sleeves and rushed me. I easily caught an incoming punch, twisted his arm behind his back as he hissed in pain, and casually redirected their own momentum to sweep the remaining seniors off their feet. Pointing to Rowan's chosen bunk, I calmly asked if we were finally allowed to sleep on it. Wyatt was absolutely seething but managed to force out a weak nod right as the squad leader suddenly walked inside. Spotting the angry veterans glaring at me like their worst enemy, he barked to know what on earth was happening. He reminded them to treat the rookies nicely, leaving the humiliated seniors to darkly grumble that they were being extremely friendly. Sergeant Winston Hayes then warmly introduced everyone in the room. Before heading out, he made sure to tell us we are a loving team and to report any bullies straight to him. Rowan kept thinking he barely survived a war zone, wishing the guy had mentioned that a little bit earlier. That way, he wouldn't have watched that terrifying massacre. I just smiled, promising the sergeant I would cherish our loving team. Wyatt's mouth twitched violently. Sergeant Winston was actually pretty helpful, breaking down all the minor rules before the entire company gathered on the training grounds. Our recon company had 3 platoons, 9 squads, and a kitchen crew. Over 100 men stood waiting for the captain's speech. Captain Lysander Cole spotted my towering figure right away, giving a rare smile while announcing we had some fresh recruits joining recon today. He called for applause, and synchronized clapping echoed across the field. Recon doesn't just teach scouting, hacking, sniping, or breaching. Here, we're expected to learn absolutely everything. 5 months from now is the annual military simulation exercise. Do not embarrass me, he warned. Show me your best. Finishing his speech, he shot a quick, meaningful glance my way before the squads split up for individual training. But thanks to this morning's drama, everyone in the dorm was incredibly hostile toward Rowan and me. During physical training, leaders usually go easy on rookies. If veterans run 100 meters, the recruits only have to run 80. But Wyatt Kane marched straight up to challenge me, saying my stamina was supposedly insane. He dared me to a log carry race. I just smiled, asking what the stakes were, because bragging is pretty boring. Wait for it. Wyatt was completely obsessed with getting payback for his embarrassing morning. The loser cleans the dorm for a week and pours the winner's foot bath water. Rowan frowned, saying his stamina was terrible. He was sure he'd drag me down. Don't worry, I whispered back. I accept. I told him to let me take the main weight. But Rowan was pretty anxious since it was 50 kilograms. He said even carrying the heavy end was too much, but I knew these guys wouldn't stop picking fights. We had to show our strength so they'd back off for good. Rowan nodded, choosing to trust me. We called the squad leader over to referee. Rowan and I hoisted the massive log onto our shoulders, stepping up to the starting line. Next to us stood Wyatt and Private Zachary Dunn. Our log was about 1.5 meters long, weighing around 50 kilograms with rough, painful bark. I positioned myself slightly off-center, with Rowan standing less than half a meter behind me. The veterans sneered, calling Caspian an idiot. Didn't he know standing closer to the center meant carrying way more weight? Our experienced squad leader noticed my positioning mistake and wanted to warn me. But since we agreed to the bet, he kept his mouth shut. Go. Both teams launched forward instantly. Wyatt and Zachary had perfect teamwork, stepping in unison and moving forward incredibly fast. Meanwhile, Rowan and I looked totally disjointed, with him flailing behind, desperately struggling to keep up. The gap widened, but we slowly found our rhythm and started stepping in sync. I began accelerating, and Rowan stuck right behind me. Check this out, we overtook them. How on earth were we running so fast? Without any prior team training, the heavy log was practically bouncing on our shoulders, and our skin was getting scraped raw. When we crossed the finish line, Wyatt and Zachary were still 6 meters behind, their faces black with absolute rage. I dropped the log, dark red blood already seeping through my green camo uniform. The losers caught up panting, their faces flushing red and pale. Someone in the crowd muttered about them losing to raw rookies. It was incredibly embarrassing, throwing away all veteran pride. Murmurs spread, but our own dorm mates stayed completely silent. They realized Caspian hid his strength just to humiliate Wyatt. Rowan ran over, incredibly excited. Calling me a beast, He celebrated that no one could bully us. But seeing my bloody shoulder, his face dropped. He told me to go to the infirmary, but I hadn't collected my prize yet. Rowan hesitated, suggesting we let it go since we were just recruits, but my gaze locked onto the veterans behind him. Rules are rules. Wyatt and Zachary were still drowning in the sheer embarrassment of losing. I walked up to Wyatt, asking if our bet stood. With an ashen face, he whispered his quiet surrender. Squeezing out his defeat, he accepted it. I smiled, telling him I would enjoy having my feet washed all week. Wyatt was left completely dumbfounded. Usually, you play nice and cancel the bet to save face. Why on earth wasn't Caspian following the usual script? The rest of the dorm heard the whole thing and looked completely bewildered. A senior veteran pouring foot water for a fresh recruit. It was totally unheard of. Afternoon training started up pretty normally. Those veterans glared daggers at us all day, but I completely ignored them and ate a huge meal. By 9:30 p.m., we finally stumbled back to the dorm, absolutely drenched in sweat. Pushing the door open, we saw everyone sitting on their small stools, staring menacingly at us. I grabbed my wash basin and headed straight for the showers while a pretty nervous Rowan muttered, "Are they plotting something evil?" I told him calmly to cross that bridge when we get to it, and stop stressing over the future. The shower room had 10 stalls separated by thin dividers. Just as we started lathering up, a group of angry veterans swarmed inside. One of them walked right up to Rowan, demanding to rinse off first, even though Rowan already had shampoo in his hair. He never expected shower stall fights, but the guy already slammed his basin onto Rowan's shelf. A second later, another guy pulled the exact same petty move, slamming his basin right onto my shelf. Shaken by the veteran towering half a head over him, Rowan meekly stepped aside. I just frowned slightly, unhurriedly continuing to scrub myself. They told me to move, but I slowly rinsed off. The other guys watched with mocking smirks. The veteran trying to steal my stall felt his ego sting, reminding me that recruits need to learn the rules. I casually glanced at the civilized behavior poster behind him, "No fighting," and "Conserve water." I pointed out that there is no rule about recruits yielding to veterans. Their expressions instantly darkened. The whole group closed in. "Why do you have gunshot scars on your body?" They followed the veteran's pointing finger, spotting a jagged, inflamed scar on my torso, a clear marker of a sutured bullet wound. Done rinsing, I prepared to leave. But 10 guys completely blocked the exit. "Look at this tension, are we really having a naked standoff right now?" Their faces grew increasingly grim. I grabbed my wash basin and tried to push past, but one guy grabbed my wrist tightly. They demanded an answer, asking if I was deaf. Seeing their murderous glares, I calmly pointed back to the wall poster. "Fighting is strictly prohibited," I said. The veterans burst into loud laughter. "Who told you this is a fight? The shower floor is just quite slippery, so a few bumps and bruises are totally normal." A small, chilling smile tugged at my lips as I repeated that slippery floors make bruises pretty normal. Hearing me say that, Rowan suddenly shuddered violently. "Oh crap. Why does this feel so horribly familiar?" At that exact second, I smashed my plastic basin squarely over the head of the closest veteran. The guy, laughing hysterically, was caught completely off guard. I moved in fast, hooking my foot right around his calf. With a heavy thud, he crashed down hard onto the wet floor. Right after, the other guys went down like bowling pins, slipping and piling onto the wet ground. The veterans groaned in pain, crying out that it hurts. They screamed to stop moving, but I just casually stepped over their tangled bodies. Man, the floor really was quite slippery. A few bruises are to be expected, right? With that, Rowan and I left without looking back. The veterans were furious enough to grind their teeth to dust. Helping each other up, they muttered about reporting this to the platoon leader. "Report what? That 10 of us got our asses handed to us in the shower by one single recruit? If word gets out, we can never show our faces again." One guy, clutching his bruised thigh, grunted that he is just a single recruit. "We have plenty of other ways to ruin him." On the way back, Rowan hesitated, asking if that was really a bullet wound on my shoulder. I gave a vague answer, and Rowan did not pry further. Returning to the dorm, everyone was still sitting on those stools, glaring intensely as we walked in. I ignored them completely, but Wyatt was visibly on edge, tracking my every single move. Only when I finally climbed into my bunk did Wyatt let out a long sigh of relief, like a disaster survivor. Rowan got into his own bunk, replaying the insane day. Thinking about everything, he let out a heavy, dramatic sigh. That sigh hit Zachary like an alarm bell. He scowled and marched right up to tell Rowan to just spit it out. "Stop acting mysterious and keeping us in suspense." Rowan was stunned. What did he even do to keep them in suspense? Without even opening my eyes, I muttered that there is no foot washing tonight, so go to sleep. Zachary ground his teeth in frustration. Over the next few days, the brutal training schedule was packed from dawn till dusk. The veterans drew a clear line in the sand, treating us as if we were invisible, except for the dorm cleaning, which Wyatt and Zachary begrudgingly took over. Thankfully, that whole foot-washing nightmare was never brought up again. The older guys finally caught their breath, but even though they survived the bet, their pride was still pretty bruised. Since I handled every single task without making a single mistake, they couldn't find any excuse to mess with me. Annoyed and looking for a target, they shifted their focus to Caspian Vance over in the sniper unit. Mostly because his name sounded just like mine, and his skills were pretty average. Poor Cassian ended up taking quite a beating from them just because of his name. Tensions skyrocketed as the massive annual military war games drew near, forcing absolutely everyone to participate. Our recon company split into scouting and infiltration teams, with 5 members randomly pulled from the same platoon. With about 6 or 8 rookies per platoon, they carved us up into 6 teams of 5 or 6. 2 teams would go head-to-head as rivals, and each group had to send 1 sacrificial hostage straight into the opposing camp. The remaining 4 or 5 soldiers could set up ambushes or run defense. First team to rescue their hostage wins. During the draft, every senior officer prayed they wouldn't get stuck with a rookie. But luck wasn't on their side. Wyatt and Zachary drew me. They almost passed out right there. Wyatt looked absolutely furious the whole time, so when we started planning, I suggested I take the lead on scouting. I promised to sneak into their base, but Wyatt shut me down completely. "You are just a rookie, so stop calling the shots." In the end, they put me on ambush duty in the thick of the mountains. The 2 camps were set about 1,000 meters apart, marked by tents. While setting up our tactical radios, we heard an angry veteran nearby screaming at a rookie, calling him useless trash, and asking if they'd taught him anything in boot camp. He warned the recruit that he would ruin the exercise, leaving the poor kid totally silent. And what do you know, it was actually Caspian Vance. Funny thing is, Cassian was actually way stronger than the guy screaming at him. Cassian simply ignored the insults, letting them slide right off. Meanwhile, over on our team, Wyatt finished handing out the roles. Wyatt would lead the scout mission with Zachary backing him up to grab the hostage, while I was left on basic defense duty. Another senior from a different squad got stuck guarding the enemy hostage right in our base. The guy looked pretty annoyed, since watching a hostage is a thankless chore where you take all the blame if they escape. He stood there holding his gun, looking absolutely miserable as we swapped hostages and headed to our starting positions. On the march, Wyatt kept lecturing us about the plan while throwing a nasty glare in my direction. He muttered that some people were letting their recent lucky streaks go to their heads, warning me that this game was about teamwork. I kept my mouth shut as the simulation officially kicked off. Without wasting time, I scaled a massive, leafy tree, dangling one leg while hiding the rest of my body behind the thick foliage. The guard just stared up in pure shock, wondering if I was some kind of monkey, because of how fast I climbed. Usually, an ambusher sets up further out, but I literally just parked myself right above our base. The guard thought about telling me to move, but then realized that if our hostage got rescued, he could easily blame it all on me. Oh, check this out. As everyone started plotting, the game finally kicked off. High up in the branches, I used my special sight to track the enemy. They immediately dispatched 2 players heading straight toward our base. Their sniper was incredibly sharp, locking down the high ground early. So the second Wyatt tried to rush their scout, the enemy sniper fired a clean shot, taking Wyatt out instantly. As the thick white smoke puffed from his shoulder sensor, Wyatt knew he was dead. He slammed his helmet into the dirt in a rage, screaming into his radio to ask what the hell was wrong with everyone. He screamed at me, the ambusher, asking why I didn't cover him when he was right in my sights. Then he blasted Zachary for failing to cover him during the rescue. Meanwhile, Zachary lay flat in the grass, his face pale as he scanned the tree line. Zachary stammered that the enemy was simply too fast to see, begging me to cover him while he made a run for the hostage. I honestly did not want to respond, but with Zachary begging, I sighed and hit the mic. Out of nowhere, Zachary heard the soft rustle of dry grass, peeking up to find a pair of combat boots creeping closer. Before he could fire, a rock hit his helmet and poof, white smoke erupted. Talk about a temper tantrum. Zachary slammed his fist down, cursing their speed and yelling at me for failing to cover him. He whined that a whole person walked right up to him without me noticing, but I just lazily replied that he was almost 500 meters away. I asked if he seriously thought my basic rifle could fire homing missiles, and even though he knew I was right, his pride wouldn't let him admit it. They kept whining, "Aren't you supposed to be a sniper god? Did you throw this on purpose?" I just sighed, completely done. "Didn't you assign me to the perimeter? And now you want offensive cover from 500 meters away? What exactly is my job description here?" Wyatt honestly believed I was sabotaging them, complaining that even with a grudge, I shouldn't ruin the training exercise. He yelled that I was dragging everyone down. Below, even the veteran guard was getting sick of them. though he still found me pretty arrogant. Watching Wyatt and Zachary frantically shift the blame like that was pathetic. So I just shut off my comms radio, silencing those buzzing flies. Then I hopped down from the tree, rifle in hand, and started walking forward. The guard yelled after me a few times, but seeing no reaction, he just threw his hands up in total defeat. Fine, screw it, let it all burn. I walked about 100 meters, my ears twitching slightly. I crouched behind a tree root, hiding my rifle barrel in a bush. Bang. The enemy scout froze, looking around in absolute panic. Where was the shooter? How am I already dead? He did not sense a thing. The enemy support, trailing 100 meters behind, got totally spooked too. These guys were veterans with great teamwork. The support instantly switched to scout mode, telling their sniper to adjust coverage. But just as their sniper shifted positions on the ridge, bang, center mass shot. The enemy sniper was completely stunned. Didn't we already eliminate 2 of their guys? Did they send their whole team out? How did someone slip into our zone like an absolute ghost? He racked his brain, unable to figure out how a squad with 2 dead weights suddenly pulled this off. Meanwhile, hearing the nearby gunshots, our guard nervously peeked out of his tent, only to lock eyes with a completely bewildered enemy sniper, covered in white smoke. The guard frowned. "How are you dead?" The enemy sniper just shook his head, throwing his hands up helplessly. Honestly, you can practically feel the pressure mounting. Wyatt and Zachary heard those 2 quick eliminations and went completely silent on their comms. "See, I told you he did this on purpose. That kid just wanted us dead so he could play the hero." But even as they cursed me, they were secretly struck by my sheer skill. The enemy's remaining support player quickly changed tactics, firing 2 blind shots into the woods to try and bait me out. The next second, his arm jerked violently as white smoke exploded, blinding his vision. He was officially eliminated. Then I casually strolled right past him, heading straight for their base. As I brushed by, only one thought echoed in his stunned mind. He didn't even view me as a threat. But look, I'm literally a top 7 international mercenary. I've licked blood off a knife edge, taken 3 bullets, and dragged a crippled leg out of a warlord's compound with a hostage on my back. For Asterisk, this little laser tag game is literally just kindergarten hide and seek. If I wasn't afraid of winning too spectacularly and scaring everyone, I would have just sat in my tree and sniped all 4 from my spawn point. Seriously, being this overpowered is such a hassle. Moving like a phantom, I glided right into the enemy camp. Bang, 1 clean shot took out their final defender. Until the moment he was eliminated, the guy had absolutely no idea how he got hit. I strolled into the tent, untied our hostage, looked up at the referee drone, and casually asked if the mission was accomplished. A few seconds later, the drone broadcasted it. The winner of this match is the red team. Wyatt and Zachary, who fed first blood 5 minutes into the game, felt like they were hallucinating. We literally just got hard carried to victory. The veterans and recruits who weren't playing were all crowded around the monitors watching the drone's live feed. The recruits were clapping and cheering wildly. Now that is an all-around war god. He can play scout, sniper, and breacher. He is completely insane. The veterans, however, left with a bitter taste in their mouths, stubbornly arguing that he has 0 team spirit. This is a team game, but he just wanted to show off his solo skills, completely ignoring his teammates' feelings. Suddenly, Caspian Vance spoke up with deadpan expressions. Did his teammates care about his feelings? They completely sucked, died instantly, and their very first reaction was to blame him. The veterans looked awkward, muttering that even if he got a role he didn't like, obeying orders is a soldier's duty. Caspian snorted coldly. There was no captain. It's a small skirmish. Everyone should discuss tactics, but they failed, shifted blame. And now you guys are mad because he solo carried them? When I got back, everyone was tense, staring as if they wanted to say something but just couldn't. Wyatt and Zachary looked especially awkward. Finally, Wyatt mustered up the courage to apologize for his tone earlier, saying it wasn't great. I paused, realizing Wyatt just wanted a graceful way to back down. I nodded, telling him next time we should coordinate better and play to our strengths. Wyatt was totally ready for me to mock him, so my chill reaction caught him completely off guard. He quickly asked how I aimed at that sniper from so far away, and I told him I just predicted the path and timed it. Zachary jumped in excited, saying it was too crazy because the next best squad only got 2 kills. A 1 versus 4 sweep is basically legendary status in this company. This moment finally broke the ice between us, turning their old grudges into pure admiration and some pretty heavy envy. From that day on, my dorm mates basically became my personal fan club during our off hours. Other squads started complaining in their rooms, wondering why Caspian and his crew were trying so hard when everyone was already exhausted. One guy poked his head down from his bunk, mentioning the Special Forces selection is happening in 3 months, right after the big exercise, and apparently our company is getting 5 nomination slots this year. Usually, we only get 1 or 2. Now watch this. Everyone wants a piece of the action until their squad leader walks in. He tells them to stop gossiping, put away their phones, and go to sleep. Meanwhile, under my guidance, quite a few veterans joined my training circle, even though learning from a recruit felt pretty embarrassing at first. But their pride quickly melted away when one realized his running posture had been completely wrong for 10 years. "No wonder my knees are shot," he said, leaving a shocked onlooker to point out he was already top 3 in running. The veteran bragged that with his newly corrected form, he is now a full second faster every 100 meters. Normally, the instructor led physical training, but he saw dozens of soldiers following my lead instead. I assessed their weaknesses and designed custom training plans. Since I acted as a supervisor, he happily let me take over. That night, Captains Thaddeus Stone and Lysander Cole returned from their trip. They wanted to check on their troops at the base right away, but when they reached the training ground, it was completely empty. Thaddeus blinked in confusion, asking Cole if it was mandatory training time. Lysander frowned deeply and immediately called platoon leader Wade to see what was going on. He demanded to know why the grounds were empty, leaving platoon leader Wade to stammer and make excuses. Wade claimed they should be practicing shooting at the back mountain range, making Lysander Cole's eyebrow twitch violently. Should be? He had absolutely no clue what his own men were doing. "What kind of platoon leader are you?" Wade apologized immediately, offering to take them to the range right now. Next to them, Captain Thaddeus Stone looked like he had caught them red-handed. He was smiling widely, but his voice carried the tone of a guy watching a complete train wreck. He teased them about how the troops these days were apparently managing their own training entirely by themselves, and practicing shooting in the pitch black while thinking proudly about his own elite sharpshooter company. Any random soldier of his could easily hit a 10-ring standard at 200 meters, no sweat. He knew Recon was still struggling at 100 meters, figuring they couldn't have improved much in such a short time. Wade rushed over in a massive panic, running straight into Lysander Cole's thunderous glare, demanding a perfectly reasonable explanation for this mess. He demanded a 10,000-word self-reflection essay on his desk by tomorrow afternoon. Wade, whose highest achievement was barely surviving middle school, looked absolutely devastated. Making a face worse than if he were crying, they walked on and noticed the distant shooting range had 0 lights on. They immediately called squad leader Winston Hayes, demanding to know what the hell was going on with the lights. Winston explained they were practicing night shooting, which only made Thaddeus Stone look even more deeply amused. "Honestly, you've got to wonder how are they supposed to hit anything in the pitch black with 0 target lights on." Lysander was left completely speechless. He had only taken a few steps when a massive, synchronized volley of gunshots echoed out, followed by someone yelling the scores. Both groups, 200-meter night shooting, all 10 rings, making the 3 men freeze dead in their tracks. Did they actually hear that right? Perfect 10 rings in the pitch black from 200 meters away? Thaddeus sprinted over first, immediately spotting me holding binoculars and calling out the perfect scores. Seeing him approach, I handed the binoculars over. Still refusing to believe it, Thaddeus took a hard look through the lenses at the 5 distant targets. Every single target had a fresh bullet hole dead center in the red bullseye. He asked if we actually shot this in disbelief, and I coolly replied that we only recently started our night shooting drills. Our accuracy might still be a bit lacking? Are you messing with me? 5, 10 rings, and you claim your accuracy is lacking? Lysander Cole, whose face had been pitch black the entire way here, could no longer hide the massive grin spreading across his face. He stewed for a long moment before finally saying they did not see it happen just now. "Bring in a new batch and fire again. Let me witness this with my very own eyes." Lunder was riding high on adrenaline, telling them that since the sharpshooter captain was right there, he should give them some proper guidance. This is a prime chance for them to steal some master techniques. Seeing my captain give the nod, I ordered a new group onto the line and replaced the targets. "Get ready," I commanded. Everyone adjusted their shooting stances in one smooth, fluid motion. Even Lysander Cole could not find a single tiny flaw to pick on. I gave the word, "Fire." They all let loose at once. 5 target bullseyes, 5 fresh bullet holes. Lunder stared at me with an incredibly complex expression, while old Stone beside him looked like a dark storm cloud had settled right over his head. Recon was right on the verge of completely outshining his sharpshooter company. He felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Suddenly claiming he had urgent business to attend to, Thaddeus quickly scurried away. Lunder cast his gaze over the soldiers, standing rigidly at attention. Each one of them had a heavy water canteen hanging from their arm, and another dangling from their rifle barrel. Lysander turned to look at me. "Was this your idea?" I nodded, explaining it ensures arm strength and aiming stability. He suddenly let out a hearty laugh, calling me Caspian Vance. "Starting right now, you are our new assistant instructor." and you will work with Wade to draft our upcoming training schedules. Meanwhile, back at the sharpshooter company, Thaddeus Stone returned only to find a few sparse squads lazily slacking through their training. Even from downstairs, he could clearly see recruits chasing each other and messing around right by the windows. Boiling with rage, he marched straight over and slammed the emergency assembly alarm, roaring that the military is not a retirement home. You are not here to enjoy a vacation. There is absolutely no organization, no discipline. Where are your scores? Where is your actual training? And where is your marksmanship? This sudden triple interrogation left everyone looking completely bewildered. Thaddeus's voice grew louder with every word, screaming that tonight, anyone who misses a 10 ring at 200 meters runs 10 kilometers. No, make that 20 kilometers, and it will be a loaded march. Everyone's eyes widened in sheer terror as their inner voices screamed in agony. Seriously, what kind of crazy pill did the captain even swallow today? The recruits nervously grabbed their rifles, standing off to the side with massive anxiety. Seeing them, Thaddeus instantly recalled the recon soldiers hanging water canteens from their arms and gun barrels. His inner rage flared up all over again. Are you guys just going to stand there and wait? Can't you think of ways to practice your fundamentals while you wait? Nobody even dared to breathe heavily, terrified he would snap next. Why are you breathing so loud? Are you an alarm clock? The veterans naturally hit the 200-meter 10-ring standard, but the recruits either hit 9 rings or hesitated forever, too scared to pull the trigger. Regardless of the reason, nobody escaped a brutal scolding. In the end, they all miserably strapped on their heavy rucksacks and ran 20 kilometers around the back mountain. For the next week or so, the usually busy Captain Stone actually began personally leading the troops through their training. One day at noon, Cassian and I had just walked out of the mess hall when we bumped into Julian Pierce, who was looking so dusty and disheveled he practically resembled a famine refugee. Seeing us, he looked like he found his savior. He rushed over, hugged me, and bawled his eyes out, crying, "Caspian, you have no idea what kind of hell I have been living in," while I stood there awkwardly. I admitted their training was a bit heavy, but it surely shouldn't squeeze him completely dry, right? Hearing this, Julian cried even harder, sobbing tragically that it was the final bundle of barbed wire that broke the camel's back. He complained that he did not know what trauma their captain suffered recently, but he was making them do insane arm strength training. At midnight, the captain drags them out to practice shooting in the pitch black where you can't see a single thing. Making them shoot in the dark? He asked if their captain was absolutely mental. Cassian shot me a side eye, and I awkwardly met his gaze. Julian kept complaining nonstop, groaning that his abs had literally gone from a 6-pack to an 8-pack. He used to have insomnia, but now he can't even get enough sleep, crying that his entire life was a tragedy. The more Cassian listened, the more he wanted to laugh, until he finally couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out. Julian roared furiously. Calling Cassian a punk, he demanded to know if he was mocking his suffering, asking if he had any conscience left at all. Cassian quickly threw his hands up in surrender, pleading that he had absolutely no intention of mocking him. "I actually feel sorry for you. I had no idea your captain went through such a massive trauma," he sneers, before laughing hysterically again. Julian finally realizes something is off and asks if they know something. So, Cassian explains exactly what went down on that fateful night, detail by detail. Hearing this, Julian glares at me with pure murderous intent, furious that we were the ones who backstabbed them, which only fires up my own anger. Even as he walks away, he keeps looking back with tragic reluctance. With a massive loudmouth like Julian around, word spreads like wildfire that I am leading the recon training, and people actually want to form tour groups just to gawk at us. Soon, the rumors infect every single company on the base. Undeterred, I take my new training schedule straight to Captain Lysander Cole. Lysander takes one look at the plan and tosses it right back, telling me to redo the entire thing. I pause, explaining that this schedule is customized for the upcoming simulation exercise. Lysander just stares at me with a complicated look. Telling me to keep talking, I slide the plan back over, pointing out the specific modules and how they tie into the exercise. At first, Lysander acts completely indifferent. He does not see what is so groundbreaking about it yet. But as I keep explaining, his expression turns deadly serious. By the end, he is nodding furiously and grinning from ear to ear, practically ready to give me a standing ovation. He calls it an excellent pitch, admitting he never even considered this angle. I quickly break down the physical metrics of the squad, dividing everyone into tiers, based on their current body conditioning. Take Cassian. His sniping is top tier, so we will focus him entirely on maximizing his raw precision. His routine will heavily emphasize arm endurance. Patting my shoulder firmly, Lysander declares we are training exactly according to my master plan. He warns me that hard work lies ahead, so I immediately snap to attention and salute him. Telling him it is no trouble at all, I leave his office right as Lysander gets a call from a rival commander. Old Cole, how have things been lately? The voice asks. Lysander chuckles, telling old Sterling to just spit out whatever he wants. On the other end, Captain Sterling chuckles, completely unabashed. He mentions hearing that our company has produced an incredibly fierce prodigy, making Lysander smile with pride. Lysander plays dumb, asking if the news has already reached him, which makes Captain Sterling chuckle at his act. Sterling claims he just wants to bring his boys over to check out our training scale purely for educational purposes, of course. Lysander sighs, telling him he should have at least given him a heads up so they could make proper arrangements. But to his absolute shock, the guy simply crashes the party that very afternoon without giving any warning whatsoever. Although Lysander has total confidence in his troops, having visitors means he needs to showcase his absolute best, so he wants his top-performing soldiers to run the demonstration. But watch this. Captain Sterling anticipated exactly this, giving Lysander zero opportunity to prepare a polished facade. Lysander assumed Sterling was coming alone, but downstairs, he finds out the rival commander has brought over a dozen men. They all salute Captain Cole, making Lysander's mouth twitch as he demands to know the meaning of this surprise visit. Sterling quickly explains that since they are here to learn, they should definitely do some sparring, hence bringing the extra soldiers. This blatant excuse leaves Lysander completely speechless. At that exact moment, I am leading the squad through a modified set of military hand-to-hand combat drills. I mixed in some Tai Chi techniques for sparring, but when Lysander opens the door, the training room looks like a total circus. A bizarre array of weird postures and strange moves is on full display. Even though Lysander was somewhat prepared, his vision still goes dark while beside him. Captain Sterling bursts into booming laughter. Asking what kind of combat training this is, Sterling mocks us, before I step up to report to my captain. I explain that it is indeed combat training, just with a slight variation, though Lysander never expected it to look this absurdly unorthodox. Lysander reminds me he made me an assistant instructor. Not permission to goof around with these unpresentable stances, but I quickly step in to explain. I was actually just having them do a cool-down relaxation exercise, because true combat is a whole different beast. Seeing so many uninvited guests, I quickly guess their intention they are here to mock us or probe our training, just like Thaddeus Stone did. Behind their visiting commander stands a dozen fresh recruits, including a very familiar face. Baxter, standing right in the crowd, winks frantically at me with an incredibly smug expression. Captain Sterling smiled to himself. Looks like those rumors were just a giant game of telephone. Seeing is definitely believing. If he hadn't come, he thought, he might have been fooled by these acrobats. Right then, Lysander stares at me with a tense face. He demands a reasonable explanation, but honestly, I hate wasting time explaining things. Talk is cheap. A live demo is way better. But before Lysander can even reply, Sterling eagerly cuts in. Fine, let's see that demo, he says. Show us the results. Hearing they can show off, everyone gets hyped, yelling to go. Everyone wants in. But Sterling scans the room and chooses Cassian and Zachary, two guys who look pretty scrawny and average. The moment the other soldiers see this matchup, they duck their heads, desperately trying to hold back their laughter. Talk about an eagle eye, he just picked Caspian's top disciple right off the bat. I ask him to double-check. Are you completely sure you want those two? Sterling nods firmly, just those two. Is there an issue? He asks. I just shake my head. And the crowd backs away to clear a sparring ring. Both captains sit down, one completely expressionless while the other looks incredibly pleased. Standing right beside Lysander, I call out the start of the match, and both fighters take their stances. Cassian throws a quick punch, but Zachary uses some crazy serpentine footwork to completely dodge the strike. Zachary doesn't just retreat while falling back. He blocks Cassian with his calf and fires off a sudden counterpunch. Honestly, it looks like a guaranteed hit. But watch this. Cassian easily deflects 1,000 pounds of force with just 4 ounces. Predicting his opponent's trajectory, he moves a split second faster, slamming a clean right hook squarely into Zachary's stomach. Zachary tries to counter right away, but Cassian is just way too fast for him. Before Zachary can even complete his move, he's sent flying backward, crashing heavily onto the cold floor. Everyone is stunned. Only the recon guys start cheering wildly. That prediction move was absolutely insane. He's truly worthy of being the top disciple. So awesome. Lysander and Sterling freeze, totally blindsided by this outcome. Still, Lysander's tense face finally softens a bit. At least they didn't embarrass him. Sterling, though, just stares at me with a pretty complicated look on his face. Old Cole, your men were clearly trained fiercely by Caspian. Dare to let your boys spar with mine? Sterling asks, as Lysander glances over his squad. And let's be real, these guys are built like absolute brick outhouses. They definitely came prepared. It's good to test each other out before the actual exercise, Sterling says, his eyes locking onto me as I smile back. Captain Sterling, this is just for cadets. As an assistant instructor, it wouldn't really be right for me to fight. Would it? Sterling narrows his eyes. Honestly, he says, I just want to see how strong you actually are. Do you plan to hide until the end? Fine, since it's a sparring session, let everyone else go first and I'll fight last. How about that? Since things have gone this far, Sterling can't really force the issue any further. Both sides send out their heavy hitters, but Caspian doesn't even return to the line. He just stays in the ring. His next opponent is an old acquaintance who now holds a brand new title, the artillery company's strongest rookie, Baxter. The exact moment Caspian and Baxter lock eyes, Baxter hilariously blows him a flying kiss. As squad leader Winston Hayes starts the match, both instantly lock in, and Baxter's punches are just like his personality. Fast, ruthless, and incredibly precise. He aims a lightning-fast strike right at Cassian's shoulder. But the split-second Baxter's fist extends, Caspian drops low, driving his elbow forcefully into his arm. Completely caught off guard, Baxter's punch trajectory is forcefully derailed. Following up instantly, Cassian's next punch lands hard on Baxter's waist. Baxter staggers back, barely absorbing the full force. His face twists in pain. When did he get this strong? He wonders, but Caspian just smiles, saying it's nothing special. Furious, Baxter unleashes a flurry of rapid punches, forcing Caspian to focus entirely on dodging at first. But after dodging several strikes, Baxter's stamina starts to flag, leaving the perfect opening. Caspian lands a solid kick directly on Baxter's calf, and they trade brutal blows like this for 2.5 minutes. Finally, Baxter's legs completely give out, and he collapses. While an exhausted Caspian is left panting heavily. Sterling's face turns a whole spectrum of colors. Caspian is actually predicting his opponent's moves before they even happen, mapping out counter strategies in a split second. Frustrated, Sterling calls up 2 more of his guys to spar with the recon squad. Our recon soldiers rarely start the fight, choosing to dismantle every single move as it comes. But the moment those artillery guys drop their guard, our fighters hit them with a brutal, totally unpredictable counterattack. Once is luck. But doing this repeatedly? That is a clear, undeniable pattern. Naturally, all 3 matches end in a total beatdown for the artillery company. Now those defeated guys are sitting on the sidelines, groaning and rubbing their bruised shoulders. Absolute shock. Their expressions completely flip once again. Talk about history repeating itself. This is the exact same scene as when Thaddeus Stone visited. Sterling glares. Since you are their instructor, you must be way stronger, right? Lysander just laughs and pats my shoulder, suggesting I give Captain Sterling a little demonstration since he is so curious. Let's see if they can actually handle this. I tell the remaining artillery guys to come at me all at once, which immediately offends them. Wait, did we hear that right? You actually want all of us to attack you at once? It sounds pretty arrogant, but I tell them that fighting one by one is just a waste of time. Let's end this fast so we can keep the schedule moving. Seeing their furious, pale faces, you can tell they are barely holding back some extremely nasty curses. Sterling scoffs coldly. Fine, since you are confident, my boys will gladly spar with you. He tells them to use their numbers but warns them not to actually hurt Caspian during this spar. The moment Winston signals the start, 7 artillery soldiers surround me. Even though I am standing right in front of them, 3 attackers cannot even touch my sleeve. I am moving like a literal phantom shadow. Several men swing at me at once, unleashing a crazy burst of power that feels almost superhuman. I grab one soldier's arm and vault right over him. In less than a second, I completely break their encirclement. I use the guy as a human shield, sticking to his back while throwing out fake attacks. Despite fighting 7 guys at once, I handle it with ease. In under a minute, all 7 are flat on the floor. Now, even Sterling cannot say a single word. He just stares at his defeated men groaning miserably on the floor. I barely even broke a sweat, just standing there totally calm. Seeing this, Lysander thinks Sterling is about to lose his mind, so he steps in front of me to block him. He warns Sterling that it is just a friendly spar, but Sterling completely ignores Lysander and walks straight up to me. He asks if I can come over to their artillery unit to teach some classes. Suddenly, the whole room goes dead silent. Honestly, I did not see this coming. Is this artillery captain really trying to poach me right in front of my boss? No way. Caspian is our absolute treasure. Those face-slapping rivals have completely flipped sides. This is pretty satisfying. I look over at Lysander awkwardly, who is just staring at Sterling in pure shock. Talk about an unexpected plot twist. Sterling just pats my shoulder. He admits he had some doubts about my skills at first, but now he genuinely wants me to teach his guys a few combat lessons. I can only laugh inside. His attitude flipped faster than a pancake. Didn't he just call my training a circus act? Barnaby is totally stunned too, silently roasting his boss. That is definitely not what he said on the way over. They were supposed to crush my arrogance and expose my weaknesses, but their captain defected even faster than they did. This is not going according to the script. After a few silent seconds, Lender says it depends on our schedule. Right now, Caspian is our assistant instructor and handles all of our training. Wade quickly backs him up, saying they need to check my itinerary first. That is when I speak up. I tell them they can leave 2 guys here as exchange students to train with us. Suddenly, everyone just blinks. Since when does the military do study abroad programs? But before I can change my mind, Sterling instantly agrees. It is a deal, he says, leaving the entire room full of confused people just staring at each other. After some picking, they leave my old buddy Barnaby and their absolute best close quarters combat specialist behind. Sterling has his own selfish plans. Since Barnaby and I are buddies, I would definitely train him harder, and their other guy already has a solid foundation. Once they return, they can train the entire company. These commanders are seriously pulling out every single trick. To save face, Lysander quietly agrees to it. Once word gets out about this exchange program, other companies immediately start sending their own guys over too. In the end, Tobias Wren, Julian Pierce, and Barnaby all wound up back together in my chaotic training class. Except this time, the tables were completely turned. We weren't just buddies suffering through drills anymore. Now, they were the recruits, and I was their instructor. Soon, the annual war games were set to kick off, and our squad was looking way stronger than they ever did before. By now, I was basically a living legend around the base. Finally, the roster and rules for the simulation were set. Lysander Cole called a massive meeting for the recon unit. This time, it's a full-scale war. Even the kitchen crew is shipping out. This is a massive joint operation pulling in 4 whole group armies. The map is huge, the terrain is incredibly rough, and just hearing about a clash this massive had everyone absolutely buzzing with excitement. Honestly, it sounded wild. Most guys weren't even hoping to win, they just wanted to survive until the late game. Just please don't let me get wiped out immediately, someone muttered, as Lysander kept talking. Do not think you can just slack off or assume this massive operation has nothing to do with a low-ranking private like you. In fact, real victory lies right in your hands. Now, let me break down how this whole competition is going to work. Our 76th Group Army and the 9th Group Army are teaming up as the Red Army. You will get armbands and special ammo that shoots out red smoke. As recon, our main job is finding the path forward. We have to feed intel back to HQ. And everyone must strictly follow the command center's orders. After wrapping up the details, Lysander spoke with heavy emphasis. He warned that even if some of us have crazy powers, we must stick to our jobs and follow orders. Cassian nudged me, whispering that he was definitely talking about me. Gritting my teeth, I just muttered for him to shut up. The night before the war games, everyone was packing up in the barracks. We had to wake up at 4 a.m. to head out. All the weapons were locked away to be handed out at the site tomorrow, which had Wyatt feeling pretty anxious. He asked if these simulated wars were actually safe, wondering what happens if someone gets hurt by accident. Zachary laughed it off, pointing out we get bruised up in normal drills anyway, so this wouldn't be any different. I calmly explained that they mostly use blanks, which are harmless, while the tanks and big artillery use modified soft shells. They definitely won't kill anyone. Captain Cole brought up those soft shells earlier, but the guys still didn't get it. Basically, you can think of them like giant sponge balls. They are packed with colored powder and smoke, and once they hit something, a switch triggers to set off the cloud. Stand in that blast zone, and you are done. Then, at 4 a.m., everyone groggily piled into the helicopters, reaching our destination by 6 in the morning. Looking around, we were surrounded by thick forests, rolling hills, and wild grass that grew taller than a grown man. Since it was his very first war game, Cassian was incredibly hyped, saying this was the ultimate spot for an ambush. First, we grabbed our weapons and 3-day rations, but the moment I held my rifle and felt its weight, I knew something was seriously off with the balance. I found the quartermaster and asked him to swap my rifle. It has got a major defect, I said, as he checked the serial number and told me to wait. He left to grab a replacement. But then I looked closely at our guns. These were not even standard issue. They were ancient models phased out years ago, so I told him both of our guns were wrong. Why are we stuck with these outdated relics when everyone else got the new models? The quartermaster snapped at me, completely annoyed, saying they hand out what they get, and I had no right to complain. He said if the gun has an issue, he will swap it, so I should stop whining. Cassian wanted to start a fight right there, but I held him back, telling him to just relax and wait for the new guns. The guy snatched our broken rifles, muttering that he was heading over to the warehouse. But here is the crazy part: we waited forever, and the guy just vanished. We still did not have our weapons. And suddenly, The loud siren sounded to officially start the war games. Since there was still no sign of the guy coming back, I walked up to another logistics officer, asking about the guy who supposedly went to the warehouse for our guns. When is he coming back? Without even looking up, the officer muttered that a round trip takes 10 minutes. Apparently, it had only been 5 minutes. Meanwhile, our squad was screaming at us to hurry, leaving Cassian completely panicking. Was this a joke? Before the match, his only goal was to avoid giving up first blood. Now he was practically sprinting straight to the slaughterhouse. A nearby squad kept yelling at them to hurry up and stop dragging their feet. We have been waiting ages for you. Grabbing Cassian, I made a split-second decision. Cassian stared at me in absolute shock. Are we really going in without guns and fighting a military exercise barehanded? I replied calmly, do you have a better idea? Cassian fell silent, because he really didn't. Everyone in our transport vehicle was part of our squad. Our orders were to head to a specific coordinate, assess the situation, and send intel back to command. The vehicle rolled steadily forward. The moment we hit the drop zone, I hauled Cassian right out of the truck. They scattered. Fast. Every man quickly found his position. Nobody even noticed that we were completely unarmed. But Cassian was sweating bullets, so I told him to remember one thing. Victory isn't decided at the starting line. Just because we don't have guns doesn't mean we can't survive until the end. Cassian groaned pessimistically. What do? We can't attack them anyway. All we had were 2 grenades each. It was our absolute last lifeline. But the word surrender does not exist in the dictionary of Caspian Vance. I had Cassian help me gather some tall grass, quickly weaving a makeshift ghillie suit for myself. Then I pulled a thread from the hem of my shirt, tying it to a grenade to set up a makeshift tripwire trap. Cassian asked hesitantly, are we really just waiting here for some rabbit to hit a tree? Isn't this trap a bit too stupid? Still, what looks stupid is often most practical. We waited like that for an entire day, and Cassian actually ate his ration, but we still saw absolutely zero shadows of any enemies. Meanwhile, the guys from our truck had already reached their sectors and were slowly pushing the front line forward. But the 2 of us stayed completely frozen, rooted to the spot like pine trees. It wasn't until past midnight that we finally spotted 2 figures slowly heading our way. I quietly pointed out the 2 blue army soldiers. They were still a decent distance away from our trap. And look at that, they seemed highly likely to bypass our trap entirely. Seeing Caspian's face light up with excitement, Cassian suddenly felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. I casually picked up a rock and tossed it toward the grass near our trap. The rock weighed down the brush as it rolled, creating the perfect illusion of rustling movement. Sure enough, the 2 soldiers instantly changed direction, their eyes locking onto the rustling brush. They watched it for a second, and when nothing else moved, they cautiously crept toward the spot. Suddenly, one of them felt his leg snag on something tight, and the next second, a grenade blew up right at their feet. It instantly blanketed the 2 of them in thick red smoke. Standing in the pitch black of night engulfed by what looked like ghost fire, the 2 men frantically raised their rifles, aiming around in pure confusion. I chuckled softly. Time to go. Let's catch our fish. As we walked right up to those 2 eliminated soldiers. Brothers, you're already dead, so no need to be so tense. One of them frowned and asked if we set up that ambush. Cassian finally felt a rush of pure excitement. Who else? The captured soldier just grumbled in annoyance. Why go through all that trouble? And why didn't you just shoot us? I spoke up. If we actually had guns, we wouldn't have gone through all this hassle. We were just waiting for you to deliver them to us. Seriously. The look on their faces was priceless. What do you mean? You want to steal our guns? I smiled faintly. Not just your guns, we want your armbands too. The 2 enemies and even Cassian stared at me at once, looking completely dumbfounded. The enemy grew furious, calling us despicable and saying we crossed a red line. I simply stared right back at him. Sometimes, rules only exist to be exploited. Now hurry up and hand over the guns and armbands. Furious but defeated, the guys ground their teeth and handed over their gear. Cassian and I quickly swapped our red armbands for their blue ones. Then the 2 of us casually swaggered away in plain sight, while Cassian looked like he was still waking up from a dream. We actually scored real guns. But I just smiled confidently. Guns are nothing. Next we're going to storm their headquarters. Meanwhile, back at Red Army Command, a soldier reported. The Recon Company is missing 2 men, Caspian Vance and Rowan Brooks. Commander Thorne asked if they tried contacting them through other channels. Did they have any comms equipment on them? The officer replied no. We haven't been able to reach them, making Commander Thorne wave it off dismissively. Just assume they've been eliminated, and exclude them from our upcoming strategic deployments. The officers nearby shook their heads in pity. How did they lose contact so quickly? What a shame. Then, Commander Thorne spoke up. Curious. Is there something wrong? What makes those two so special? An aide beside him quickly explained that a rookie recently exploded onto the scene in the recruit company. Word is, his skills are right up there with special forces, and he even developed his own signature combat style. Hearing this, Commander Thorne immediately found the guy sounded crazy strong and oddly familiar. Plus, he's a university student. They pulled up my file and nodded. You guessed right, sir. He joined the army during his junior year. Pretty impressive, right? But Commander Thorne went silent. If he really is that guy, he wouldn't get knocked out so easily. I want to see what kind of storm he unleashes. Meanwhile, after hiding our red armbands, I started reloading our weapon magazines. One red bullet, one blue bullet, alternating. Got it? Even if Cassian didn't understand my logic, he knew trusting me was always safe. I weighed the new rifle in my hands. These enemy guns were way better than our starting gear. Less recoil, more stable. Just remember, the first round chambered must be blue. That way, if we run into the blue force, we can easily blend in and play both sides. Moving stealthily, we kept a low profile until we spotted an artillery company ahead. Cassian whispered to go now, but I shook my head. Not yet. We'll get torn apart by friendly fire if we rush. Just wait a bit. Now watch this. Suddenly, they got orders and sprinted off. I told Cassian to run straight toward their firing line. The heavy artillery from both sides clashed brutally. It felt like the Red Army was really bringing the heat. The advancing blue artillery was forced to fall back 500 meters. I told Cassian, now is our chance. I grabbed Cassian, and with our faces smeared in mud, we bolted like madmen toward the retreating artillery company. When we suddenly popped out, their guards yelled, demanding our company. I shouted back that we were basic infantry. We got separated while dodging the Red Army's mortar strikes. They bought the lie instantly, telling us to fall back before this whole zone got blasted. Their big guns are incoming. Just like that, we found the perfect cover story to slip right into the Blue Army. Cassian stared at me in complete shock, whispering that his heart nearly exploded out of his chest. He called me a total legend. I just shrugged. This is only step one of our plan. We have to sniff out their main command center. Right now, we are sitting inside a blue armored core base. The place is packed. Clinging to our rifles, Cassian and I played the part of patrol guards, casually walking around the main camp tents. Cassian kept looking around like a nervous wreck. I told him to stop being so obvious. Just pretend you own the place. The more freaked out you look, the faster we get caught. Cassian was practically sweating bullets. He asked how this was any different from offering our heads to an executioner. He tried to act cool, but his body completely refused to cooperate. Meanwhile, I walked around completely relaxed. Suddenly, an officer ran out and ordered the two of us to come help haul some heavy gear. He swung the warehouse doors wide open. Inside, the place was stacked high with massive artillery shells. Crates of ammunition were piled to the ceiling. Talk about massive firepower. The guy told us to grab 5 crates. They are running dry at the front line, so move fast. I quickly asked which vehicle we should use. He pointed to a nearby off-road jeep, saying it was a smaller target. I saluted with sharp, military efficiency. Understood, sir. We can handle this ourselves. Go ahead and tend to your other tasks. The guy paused and warned us, telling us to be careful and asking if we knew the drop-off point. I smiled and assured him we did. Once he walked away, I smiled at Cassian. Talk about a jackpot. I quietly pulled a loose thread from my shirt. I wedged a live grenade between 2 ammo crates, tying the loose string across the doorway to create a tripwire. If anyone walked in to grab a shell, they'd instantly trip the wire. Within seconds, we backed away safely. Cassian whispered, asking how on earth I was so good at rigging traps. My gut wanted to tell him that practice makes perfect, but I bit my tongue and said these were just survival basics. Meanwhile, the other teams who played it safe had already taken over 50% casualties in their own areas. Wyatt looked utterly miserable, telling the others that Caspian got separated from them the moment they jumped off the truck. Wondering how he was doing, while another teammate sighed, guessing Caspian was probably dead. The enemy barrage was just too thick, forcing them to take a massive detour. Wyatt's early excitement was completely crushed by harsh reality. Supposedly, they were just recon scouts. But make one wrong move, and they basically became human minesweepers. Many teammates already fell exactly like that. Zachary was one of them. Meanwhile, back in the Red Army Command Center, Commander Thorne was restlessly pacing the floor. Staring at the virtual map to track the enemy front lines, he demanded to know if there was still no news from their ambush squad. They were pulling off a classic bait and switch here. One squad was sacrificed as pure bait. At the same exact time, they slipped their most elite team through the newly opened gap to infiltrate deep behind enemy lines. But unexpectedly, they stumbled right onto the main armored core base. Right as they neared the base, a massive, earth-shattering explosion shook the ground. Boom! A towering plume of red smoke filled the sky. Even the ambush team is completely stunned. You have to admit, they hadn't even fired a single shot yet. Who on earth just crashed this base? Suddenly, pure panic erupts. The main ammo depot just blew up. Take cover. And they just set up their spot. Naturally, the enemy assumed the attackers were nearby. So even though our squad didn't pull the trigger, they instantly became the prime suspects and public enemy number one. Luckily, a hidden path offered a way out, though the insane gunfire nearly wiped them out. Suddenly, an urgent report comes in. The enemy base is hit. Their main ammo depot is completely wiped out. With the striker's identity a mystery, a shocked Commander Thorn asks if it wasn't your team. Is there a third party out there? The squad leader admits he has no details, but confirms they saw red smoke. Thorn immediately matches his wavelength, muttering, could it actually be Caspian Vance? Confused, one ambush squad member asks if the commander had secretly deployed another team here. Thorn wants to believe it is Caspian, but deep down, he knows the odds are insanely low. He couldn't pin his hopes on the kid just because of his past. Forget it for now. He orders them to push to the next base under cover fire. Meanwhile, I was casually cruising toward another enemy camp in a stolen jeep. Before long, we pull up to the next location. It looks like a standard infantry battalion. Just a few completely basic tents. Cassian Dead seriously analyzes the camp and claims this cannot be headquarters. Usually, a real command center is packed to the brim with high-tech monitors, advanced gear, and massive screens, right? But look around here. There's literally nothing. Just two tiny tents that could barely fit a couple of sleeping bags. How could a command base be hidden in a dump like this? With his explanation done, he turns to me, practically begging for a compliment. I just give him a calm, reassuring smile. Your logic makes sense, buddy. But that is not how you scout a target. Cassian immediately locks in. So you are saying this actually is the command base. They must be using reverse psychology to hide in plain sight. I just roll my eyes. Seriously? Can you stop overthinking everything? Look closely here. This is how you actually identify a command base. First, check the security patrols and the perimeter guards. We are literally within 500 meters of the camp, yet there are barely any scouts. It proves they do not care about this spot. Second, look for large signal receivers. Bulky items are almost always kept outside. Even if they hid them indoors, the tents would have to be massively larger. This sad little setup just does not fit the bill. Third, but before I can finish, a military vehicle comes roaring. Ditching our jeep instantly, we dive into some nearby brush. Quick, swap your armbands. Those are Red Army guys. They are on our side. Time to go say hi. Standing straight up, I raise my hands high above my head, yelling out that we are also with the Red Army. Naturally, the driver immediately raises his rifle. Some random guy popping out of the woods, claiming to be an ally, is incredibly fishy. He demands to know our regiment, company, my name, and our commanding officer. I answer every question flawlessly, and the squad immediately radios the intel straight back to headquarters. The second the command center hears the name Caspian Vance, their eyes instantly lit up. Learning that we were the ones who blew up the enemy ammo depot, Commander Thorn breathes a massive sigh of relief, then asks if we want to team up with the ambush squad. I shut that down immediately. I have my own plans, and I work best alone. But their squad leader, Sergeant Trent, is not happy. He snaps back with obvious irritation. Do not think you are hot stuff just because you managed to blow up one ammo dump. In the grand scheme of things, you still have to obey Central Command. Suddenly, a powerful voice cuts in over the comms, telling Trent to let Caspian Vance operate however he wants. Trent is completely stunned. He protests, sir. You are letting him go totally rogue. What if he completely ruins our mission? Thorn stays silent for a moment. Give him a radio. We need to stay in constant contact with Caspian, Thorn orders. Hearing this, Trent stares at me with a heavily complicated look. He tells one of his guys to pass me a radio. I drag Cassian, who was holding his breath the whole time, back into our jeep and take off. Once we are gone, Trent turns to Thorn and asks what Caspian Vance's deal really is. Thorn replies that this absolute rookie made a massive name for himself back during boot camp. Trent is completely stunned. That is it? No way, he doesn't have a secret trump card hidden away. You never give out free passes for nothing, Trent points out, making Thorn chuckle warmly. Thorn admits it is the truth, though he is quite eager for the kid's next move. Then, a cold voice interrupts. Thanks for the praise, I say, and I won't disappoint you. Both officers instantly freeze in pure, awkward silence. They completely forgot one crucial detail. The radio they gave me was preset directly to their secure command channel. Thorn lets out an awkward laugh. Right, Caspian. Moving to a different frequency now. Report directly to me if anything develops, Thorn orders. Understood, Commander, I reply. Setting down the microphone, Thorn exhales heavily. Why do I feel so guilty? I did not even say anything bad, did I? An officer nearby notes that this Caspian Vance clearly marches to the beat of his own drum. My original plan was to cause absolute chaos at that enemy infantry base, but since the ambush team showed up, I let them handle it. As we cruise down the road, I suddenly curse. Damn it, we should have grabbed some grenades from those guys back there. Cassian is riding shotgun, totally dazed and lightheaded, feeling like he is trapped inside some kind of bizarre fever dream. How did they randomly stumble into the commander's elite ambush unit? Watch Caspian casually decline them, and get promoted to a solo operative reporting straight to the top. I look completely full of regret. We only have 2 grenades left. We need to make these count, I tell him. Cassian just stares at me blankly, asking if his opinion even matters. Since you are the one running the entire show anyway. Soon? Deep night falls again. And get this, I am tearing through the pitch-black woods with the headlights completely dead. Cassian white-knuckles his seatbelt, praying he survives this ride. Are you seriously tearing through the woods without lights? Do you want to get us both killed? I keep my tone completely flat. I am in a rush, and this darkness looks like broad daylight to me. Plus, I intercepted some chatter indicating there is likely another enemy outpost about 1 kilometer ahead of us. Cassian watches helplessly as I floor the gas to 80 kilometers per hour on this brutal, cratered terrain. He is tossed around so hard he feels his soul escaping. I seriously think you are trying to kill me, he screams. This is a literal roller coaster from hell. Please spare my life. Suddenly, I slam on the brakes, turning Cassian completely pale. Before he can let out a scream, I quickly cover his mouth. Shh, keep quiet, there are hostiles nearby. Slipping out of the jeep, I activate my eagle eye ability to scan 3 kilometers ahead. Sure enough, an enemy camp appears. Despite being past midnight, the place is fully lit, with soldiers constantly moving. Their perimeter guards are stationed over 1 kilometer out. I grin. Looks like I found it. Cassian gets instantly excited, asking if that is the headquarters and if we are striking now. Shaking my head, I say no rush. Let's wait a bit. So, Cassian sits down, pulls out a survival ration biscuit, and starts snacking like he is on a weekend picnic. I laugh. You have definitely got the right attitude now. His entire outlook has undergone a massive shift. I have made peace with this, he says, admitting he was terrified earlier because of his overthinking. As long as I consider myself already dead, and that my breathing is just borrowed time, I can face whatever comes with absolute peace. I give him a big thumbs up, respect. Meanwhile, the Red Army is losing ground fast. Even with their supply depot destroyed, the Blue Army manages a lightning-fast adjustment. They deploy massive waves of soldiers to flank the outer edges, intentionally leaving 2 camps empty as bait to draw the enemy in. And of course, the Red Army falls completely for the trap. Throwing their main force directly at the bait, they lose their supply lines and reinforcements to the enemy. Now, the Blue Army soldiers act like countless tiny bullets, all aiming straight for the Red Army headquarters. Even with decoy bases set up, it is only a matter of time before their real headquarters gets compromised. Through my comms, I hear constant, grim updates. Then, Thorn connects directly. Caspian, what is your status out there? I think I have found the Blue Army headquarters. After listening to reports of heavy defeats all night, Thorn finally breathes a sigh of relief. I am putting their headquarters in your hands. Can you pull this off? I will do my best. Caspian, you have to give this everything. I am redirecting the ambush squad to assist you. They are all yours to command. Hearing that more reinforcements were on the way just gave me a massive headache. No thanks. I work best completely on my own. Meanwhile, Commander Thorn checked his numbers. They only had about a quarter of their men left. The opposing Blue Army was not doing much better though. Aside from me and our ambush squad, only a few small squads were left. But they kept getting ambushed along the way. By the time anyone got close to the Blue Army headquarters, almost nobody was left standing. The very last bit of hope now rested entirely on Caspian Vance. Caspian, what is your status? Report your situation right now. But those radio calls went unanswered. Commander Thorn stared at the static in total despair, wondering if they were truly about to lose. Right at that exact second, Cassian and I quickly swapped back into our blue armbands. We strolled casually straight toward the Blue Army headquarters. Because of this massive joint war game between 2 giant armies, there were just too many unfamiliar faces. So we raised no red flags. But once we crossed into the actual headquarters perimeter, the security was insanely tight. 2 entire rows of heavily armed guards stood in perfect formation, completely blocking the path to the main command tent. Even the regular patrol guards were forced to turn back before getting close. I realized right then that I had to find some way to slip inside. Even if I could not squeeze myself in, I needed to get a bullet or a grenade through. I hefted the only 2 grenades I had left, preparing to risk absolutely everything on them. But before taking action, I had to find out exactly how many targets were inside, so I could wipe them out in seconds. First, I tried to report our exact position to Commander Thorn. And check this out, they actually jammed all local signals, completely cutting us off from our own team. Looks like we are totally on our own. I ripped 2 long threads from my uniform and rigged the first grenade by their ammo crates. I handed the trigger string to Cassian. Next, I planted the second grenade near the main entrance. Just 2 small explosives, but they had to make enough noise to draw those guards away. I kept the last 2 smoke grenades for myself. Knowing the success of this entire mission depended entirely on the 2 strings in his hands, Cassian started shaking like crazy. I quickly whispered to him to stay calm and just wait for my signal. Then, pretending to inspect a parked military truck, I climbed up to find a clear view. Peeking through the fabric, I got a clear look inside. Exactly 5 people were there, including 1 armed guard standing right by the flap, clearly acting as security. But out of the other 4, 1 wore a decorated command cap that caught my eye. That was the big boss. Once I locked onto my target, I crept closer to the tent and flashed a hand signal to Cassian. Cassian yanked both strings hard. 2 loud blasts ripped through the campsite at the exact same moment. Pure panic erupted instantly. The guards screamed to stay alert, protect the base, and hold their ground. Don't let anyone get close. Right then, massive clouds of thick white smoke started filling the entire entrance area. Oh man, they are pushing in. Look at all this smoke. Where is he? Secure the damn door. Shoot anyone who tries to get inside. But while they were all focused on the front gate, I had already changed my position. Using the thick smoke to blind their vision, I quietly slipped around to the side of the tent. Finding a small gap in the heavy canvas, I poked my rifle barrel inside and aimed directly at the enemy commander. Bang! In that split second, time itself froze, followed by absolute screaming inside the command room. The commander is down. We lost. Where is the shooter? How could none of you see him with this much security out here? Moving like a literal ghost, I had already switched back to my red armband. I just walked right into the middle of the crowd, waving casually. Instantly, over a dozen loaded rifles pointed straight at my chest. The assassinated Blue Army commander pushed open the tent flap and stepped outside. Are you the one who took the shot? I gave a nod. What is your name? He asked. I am Caspian Vance, Recon Company, 76th Group Army. The commander muttered my name, then suddenly stared at me in total shock. You are just a rookie recruit, and you took me out? Yes, sir. Everyone's jaw literally hit the floor. You did this completely alone? I just pointed back at Cassian, still hiding behind a truck. I have a partner with me. The entire crowd figured my partner had to be some legendary veteran. Instead, they watched a pretty nervous-looking guy slowly shuffle out into the open. The Blue Army commander laughed dryly, admitting he thought Thorn was going to lose to him again this year. Just like last time. I honestly never expected him to drop a secret trump card, quietly raising 2 elite operatives to breach my base. Meanwhile, the Red Army headquarters was under absolute siege. Give us a report, Commander. Our artillery company has collapsed, with less than 3 survivors. We have basically 0 recon scouts left to help us. The enemy's firepower is just too overwhelming. They are pushing hard and standing right outside our gates. Commander Thorn felt like a ticking bomb was active inside his head. Every bad update was another explosive blow. We completely lost contact with Caspian's squad, and the other ambush team, his panicked subordinate reported they were captured. They are hostages now. Commander Thorn slammed his fist down, shouting to fight until the very end. Even if it turns into a bloodbath, we must make old Griffin suffer. Send our last tanks to Sector 3. Look at that sky, sudden red signal flares erupt out of nowhere. Everyone freezes as Thorn is called outside. Commander Thorn squints up at the red lights, utterly confused. What's happening? We shouldn't have any men left there. Could it be that kid Caspian? No way. Thorn immediately shuts down his own wild theory. Having clashed with Commander Griffin for years, he understood the man's defensive plays inside and out. Griffin would absolutely surround his main base with heavy forces. Rumor had it he even set up an impenetrable 8-trigram scout net. There was just no way Caspian and his partner could crack that defense without any backup. Did Trent's squad somehow pull off a miracle? While they stand there scratching their heads, Thorn's phone starts ringing. Naturally, it's Commander Griffin. Old Thorn, you played a pretty sharp game this year. You caught me off guard. Thorn plays along, keeping silent, so his rival won't suspect he has no clue either. Old Griffin, I warned you not to doubt me. I had a lethal trump card ready to drop. Griffin grunts in annoyance, admitting he is genuinely curious. Seriously, how did your soldiers bypass my massive siege and stroll right into my base with absolutely 0 support? Those two didn't just drop straight from the heavens, did they? Those two. Hearing that phrase, Thorn finally gets his confirmation. It is definitely Caspian and Cassian. To think they actually pulled off an impossible comeback to clutch this entire victory. Realizing the truth, Thorn bursts into deep laughter, calling it their primary military secret. Suddenly, the background noise fades as if Griffin stepped away into a private room. He drops his voice to a quiet whisper. Is this Caspian Vance really that guy? Thorn answers seriously. Yes. Hearing this, Griffin's eyes grow very serious. I never realized the kid was this powerful. It seems your win this season was just pure dumb luck. Hearing this, Thorn's face turns green with anger. Old Griffin. What on earth do you mean by that? Caspian invaded your base under my orders, so stop downplaying my leadership skills. Griffin just laughs mockingly. He is an internationally ranked top 7 mercenary who can wipe out an entire city single-handedly. Do you honestly believe he needed your guidance to find my headquarters? Thorn is left completely speechless with zero defense, but he still stubbornly snaps back. Having great luck is a legitimate skill. It's not my fault Caspian picked my squad. Same rules apply. So you owe me 2 bottles of the premium stuff. Now, this is where things get hilarious. The moment the other soldiers spot those flares, they're just as confused. Especially the knocked-out Red Army soldiers, who start cheering wildly in their holding zones. This is insane. We actually clutched a massive comeback. It hasn't even been 3 days and this exercise is done. Lander Cole sighs, noting it feels like their entire company has gathered together. I was honestly hoping you guys would survive a bit longer so we wouldn't meet at this graveyard so early, but I arrive and find the whole damn gang is already here. Wyatt shrugs helplessly. We had no choice, since recon scouts on the front line are always prime targets for feeding first blood. Looking around, Wyatt scans the crowd. I still don't see Caspian or Cassian anywhere, so they must still be alive out there. Zachary grumbles enviously. Must be nice. Look at how much action they got. They survived right to the end and basically carried us to victory. Another soldier wonders if Caspian was the one who personally took down the Blue Army commander. The second those words are spoken, the surrounding crowd bursts into massive, booming laughter. Okay. There is a limit to joking around. Caspian is definitely strong, but you're being ridiculous. You sound like you are daydreaming. Only Lander Cole's expression stays deeply complicated. Once the mock battle wraps up, both the Red and Blue armies head back to their zones. Out of nowhere, a lone off-road jeep comes tearing toward them. Everyone turns, wondering who is making such a grand entrance. Checking the plates, it belongs to the other group army. Are they showing up to pick a fight because they are bitter? Standing right at the front of the formation, Commander Thorn glares at the approaching vehicle with clear displeasure. Some random car crashing his turf is pretty bold. But watch closely, the passenger and rear doors all fly open at once. The entire crowd eagerly cranes their necks, desperate to see who these gate crashers actually are. To their absolute shock, 2 familiar faces step out. It's Caspian and Cassian. Did they actually defect to the enemy? The guy next to him slaps the back of his head, telling him to think smarter. Meanwhile, Lysander Cole stares at Caspian in shock. Right after, Commander Griffin steps out of the car. Caspian and Cash stand in a straight line, saluting Commander Thorn. Reporting for duty. Due to travel delays, we are late for assembly. Thorn's face looks grim. Griffin personally escorting Caspian back seems like he is trying to prove a point. As Caspian returns to formation, Thorn braces himself, expecting Griffin to gloat or make some passive-aggressive remarks. Instead, Griffin simply smiles and addresses him as Old Thorn. He brought his men back but has to run to an urgent meeting. Only then does Commander Thorn's expression soften up a little bit. Once Griffin's vehicle drives off, dozens of eyes shift right back to Caspian. Commander Thorn clears his throat, announcing that they all know the final results of this exercise. The Red Army won. Thunderous applause erupts from the troops as Thorn looks over the crowd with immense satisfaction. Everyone performed exceptionally well out there, but this training also exposed several key issues. He quickly summarizes the problems, ordering every single company to conduct thorough reviews based on today's flaws. Finally, his gaze lands on Caspian, asking how he felt about his performance. Caspian simply replies to the commander. He claims his performance was pretty average. Thorn pauses, an amused smile on his lips. He tells him there's no need for false modesty, since sniping the enemy commander deserves everyone's praise. Hearing this, the onlookers feel their scalps go completely numb with shock, and someone slowly starts clapping. Soon, the entire crowd is cheering frantically, looking at Caspian with pure admiration. But his response is a formal report. He points out areas where he underperformed, claiming his efficiency should have been way higher. At the start of the exercise, he didn't have a gun, and later forgot to ask the ambush squad for extra grenades. Otherwise, he could have ended the fight much earlier. Wait, let's back up. He didn't even have a gun at the start? Then what on earth was hanging around his neck? This guy is speaking Vidian, but he is being a massive humble braggart. Thorn's face darkens, asking what happened to his initial rifle. Caspian explains the gun was totally defective. Its structure was unstable, and though he requested a replacement, the new weapon never arrived before kickoff. Now, this is where it gets crazy. The entire crowd is left speechless at how he turned a hell mode start into an absolute carry. Someone can't help but ask if he really survived to the very end using just 2 grenades. To be precise, 4 grenades. Cassian and he had 2 each. Everyone just stares blankly at the sky. How on earth are they supposed to respond to that? Commander Thorn finally realizes something is way off. He looks at Caspian's rifle, then at the others. Despite being the same Red Army, the models are completely different. He whispers to an aide who immediately rushes off, before speaking a few more words and announcing everyone can rest up tonight. The mess hall will host a victory banquet, and tomorrow morning, everyone returns to their bases. Dismissed. He then orders Caspian to follow him for a moment. Caspian followed the stern commander into his office and sat upright on the sofa as Thorn cut straight to the point. He knows Caspian's background is not simple, demanding his true motive for joining. Caspian pauses, answering with earnest respect. To serve his country naturally. In his heart, Vidia's standing is absolutely paramount. Commander Thorn scrutinizes him, trying to spot any hint of deceit. He asks if Caspian knows about the Special Forces selection. Caspian nods, confirming he does. Commander Thorn takes a slow sip of tea, a knowing smile appearing on his face. He asks if he'll sign up. Caspian says he will, but won't need a free pass, earning his spot fair and square. He laughs, calling Caspian a walking cheat code, and asks if playing fair even makes sense for someone like him. Caspian says he doesn't understand the commander's meaning, but believes true strength is something you hone yourself. Naturally, he's entering the selection, Commander Thorn thinks to himself. Is this little punk seriously still trying to play dumb with me? Fine. You're stubborn, but watch your back. Dominating a major military exercise like this means every high-ranking eye is locked on you now. I'm pretty curious to see how you handle it, especially since that Reborn Mercenary account is still active. Commander Thorn flashes me a highly suspicious grin. He respects talent, but Caspian's true identity is a complete mystery. An elite wildcard like him needs a seriously tight leash. Leaving his office, a brutal realization hits me. Oh crap, I completely forgot to turn off my mercenary commission status. If that account stays active, clients will keep flooding me with jobs. Plus, the military and police are going to watch my every move. How did I overlook such a massive detail in all this rush? Ignoring those job offers will absolutely tank my rank. But check this out that night. The recon squad gathers around the fire to trade some wild stories. Back in high school, I had a major hero complex. If I saw something unfair, I'd immediately throw hands. Ended up getting beaten straight into the hospital. The whole squad bursts out laughing. Completely unfazed, the guy grins. My parents had zero clue what to do with me. They were terrified my stupidity would get me killed, so they packed me off to the military. Another guy laughs. A hero? Didn't you get knocked out on day 1? What kind of savior gives up first blood immediately? You're basically a hero for the other side. They must have loved you. Roars of laughter echo around the flames. When the spotlight hits Caspian, he looks pretty embarrassed. I just remember hearing that if you join, you regret it for 2 years, but if you don't, you regret it forever. His simple statement immediately strikes a chord with everyone there. But I look at him with a dead serious expression and ask, if you actually make the cut for Special Forces, are you really going back to college when your 2 years finish? The heavy question catches Caspian totally off guard. Honestly, I haven't even thought about it. I definitely want to enlist and make it into the elite Special Forces unit, but I still feel like I'm not strong enough. Zachary immediately gets annoyed, grumbling that hearing Caspian say that is incredibly frustrating. If a monster who consistently ranks right at the top of the leaderboard says he is weak, what does that say about the rest of us? Caspian blushes, highly embarrassed, while I tell him he needs to think this through. Your goal has to be absolute, because if you waver, you lose your drive. Just then, a jacked, dark-skinned soldier stands up. I enlisted because back then, I was constantly bullied. Staring at his massive, shredded frame, it is almost impossible to picture him as a victim. He explains his family got incredibly rich from a property buyout. After we got the cash, an elite private academy opened nearby, and my parents forced me to enroll. But the bullying wasn't physical, it was absolute isolation, and those silent, judging looks of pure disgust. I'm a pretty extroverted guy, but in that place, I couldn't make one single friend. Eventually, I snapped, had a massive blowout with my dad, and quit. Around then, I saw a retired veteran walking past my house, proudly wearing a giant red flower. Everyone was cheering and clapping for him, Right then, I knew I wanted to wear the uniform. Next, a pretty sharp-looking, intellectual guy chimes in, admitting he's a huge military geek whose ultimate dream was joining the Air Force. Flying fighter jets was everything to me, but I ended up failing some of the physical requirements, shutting that door completely. Still, as long as I'm serving my country, I know I can make a difference. I plan on staying in the military forever. That is Elliot Finch, a dedicated guy who actually got eye surgery just to pass the physical exam. Listening to them feels like peering directly into their old lives. Even though they all come from totally different worlds, destiny and shared dreams united them here, slowly stripping away the cold, defensive armor they used to hide behind. Tonight, they genuinely connect as brothers. Then, the spotlight lands on me as everyone cheers. You've got to be kidding me. Caspian, you're absolutely cracked. What kind of insane training did you do back home? I hesitate for a second, joking about world peace. Obviously, I can't drop the real truth on them without scaring them half to death. Having witnessed the brutal horrors of active war zones firsthand, I genuinely appreciate how incredibly peaceful Viridia really is. No wars, no chaos, entirely thanks to the relentless defense of our military. But I can't exactly tell them that my true mission is to protect Viridia openly and honorably, instead of sneaking around under fake names. The next morning, we head back to our bases. Lysander Cole immediately pulls me aside for a serious private chat. He warns me to keep a low profile, mentioning they already know about my legendary past. Naturally, I just keep playing completely clueless. Lysander rolled his eyes in sheer disbelief. With the Special Forces trials coming up, everyone was begging me to turn their training intensity up to 11. On top of training my own company, I ended up taking my old boot camp squad under my wing again. Barnaby, Julian, Tobias, they all desperately wanted to pass the upcoming selection, but my days were completely booked. That meant running brutal night training sessions was my only option. Because of that, Barnaby showed up looking like a zombie every morning, immediately getting chewed out by his artillery captain. The captain roared at Barnaby, asking if he was turning into some kind of nocturnal rat. He warned him that if he failed the Special Forces cut this year, he would be wasting all those sleepless nights. Dizzy with exhaustion, Barnaby totally missed the sarcasm. He just yawned and mumbled a thank you for the captain's blessing, leaving Captain Sterling completely speechless and regretting his entire life. Meanwhile, the turnout for our recon company hit a historic peak. When Lysander saw the massive tower of application forms, he practically choked. The total turnout from recon this year was absolutely mind-blowing. Still, he felt incredibly proud, seeing his soldiers show that kind of ballsy confidence. With exactly a week left before the official selection, Commander Thorne gathered every single applicant to brief them on the trials. First up was an intelligence exam which instantly made the former school slackers look like they wanted to die. One slacker groaned that he literally sweats just looking at a page full of words. Lysander tried to calm them down, saying the difficulty is pretty low, but that only made the guys feel way more terrified. Lysander then detailed the rest: brutal physical endurance tests and a wilderness survival segment. Special forces do not work alone. So many of these trials are going to test team chemistry. Since nobody trained for this, it would not be totally unfair. Everyone tried to picture the challenges ahead, but the overwhelming vibe in the room was pure anxiety. But watch how fast the mood shifts when Lysander reveals a box with 30 lottery balls inside. Inside, one of those balls was a single pass slip that would grant an automatic nomination straight into the recon company. The entire room instantly erupted into chaotic cheers as guys yelled out, asking if he was serious. One guy started praying to his ancestors, begging to draw the pass since he had never even won a free soda cap in his 20 years of life. He claimed he was channeling all his lifetime luck, making me smile faintly. I never expected Lysander to leave the final slot to random chance, but nobody should celebrate just yet. This special slot did not guarantee entry, it only bypassed the initial elimination rounds. Every soldier still had to survive the brutal training sessions, so a massive line quickly formed to draw from the box. When my turn came up, Lysander let out a heavy grunt like he was already annoyed. Guys were complaining left and right about their bad luck, swearing to make a mortal enemy out of whoever pulled the winning ticket. As the balls were cracked open one after another, they all turned up empty. They wondered if the captain forgot to put it in, but then all eyes landed on the single ball left in front of me. Some muttered that if I drew it, the rest of them were basically just extra background characters in my story. And honestly, you won't even believe my ridiculous luck here under their watchful eyes. I cracked the final ball open to find the pass. Everyone instantly lost their minds, crying out about the total lack of justice. I stared blankly at the paper in my hand, completely speechless, while Lysander burst out laughing at my ridiculous luck. He joked about my insane luck, but I just paused and offered to forfeit so they could run the draw again. Lysander froze. The others looked completely shell-shocked that I was just tossing away a golden ticket. While they muttered that they would have slept with that ball under their pillow, I calmly explained that I actually wanted to try the trials. I wanted to experience the brutal challenges firsthand, which left the entire crowd completely speechless. They realized the elite really do think differently. But Lysander had pretty much figured out my stubborn personality by now. Knowing my stubborn personality, Lysander just smiled and started a redraw. This time, the lucky winner was Elliot Finch, the guy who got laser eye surgery because he wanted to be an Air Force pilot. Nervous as hell, he subconsciously tried to push up glasses he no longer even wore. His face turned bright red as he stammered that his luck was pretty good after all, never expecting to win. Then he turned toward me and bowed deeply. "Thank you for giving me this chance," he said. I just waved it off. I told him I hoped he would make it to the very end. Elliot smiled, promising to give it his absolute all. A few days flew by. It was the night before selection, and everyone was frantically packing up their gear. Wyatt kissed his pendant, clutching it tightly between his hands while closing his eyes in a quiet, intense prayer. I walked over and asked if that necklace meant something special. Wyatt just smiled sheepishly. Before he enlisted, his mom went to a temple to get this to keep him safe and healthy. Wyatt was clearly quite nervous. His hands were shaking a bit while packing his rucksack. Early the next morning, we grabbed our gear and boarded the bus. Over 30 of us were sitting on the bus, but barely 30 minutes into the trip, the vehicle suddenly ground to a halt. What was happening? The drive to the selection site was supposed to take 3 or 4 hours. Was this a test already? Cassian grabbed my sleeve, looking terrified. They are not playing by the rules. Is this starting right now? But I kept my cool. You know the real test started the second we stepped on. Suddenly, a group of fiercely intimidating instructors boarded. One had a nasty, snail-like scar running right across his hand. "Get off the bus right now," he barked. "There are 5 vehicles parked below. Split into groups of 6 and pick a ride." But looking at the vehicles, they were a bizarre mess. We had a minivan, a pickup, an electric trike, and a box truck. Someone asked if we could choose. Scarface smirked. He said we could. Hearing that, everyone immediately swarmed me, asking which ride I was going to take. They kept begging to tag along, not wanting to be left behind. Everyone desperately wanted me. I chose the pickup truck. The lucky guys scrambled into the truck bed with me, while the rest quickly grouped up with their close friends. But the moment we formed our groups, the scarred man ruthlessly grabbed 2 guys from each vehicle and swapped them. A second later, he grabbed me and tossed me straight onto the electric tricycle. That tiny cargo bed was suffocating, already packed with 4 other guys and their massive rucksacks. Spotting me, they scrambled to squeeze over and make a sliver of space. I barely knew any of them. Honestly, Scarface was brilliant at breaking up comfortable groups. Nobody spoke a word the entire ride, totally intimidated by my presence. This electric trike had 0 horsepower, and the tires were practically flat. With all of us inside, the tires instantly sank. A quiet, plainclothes driver took the wheel of our pathetic ride. Freezing wind whipped our faces. We were cold on the outside and dead on the inside as we all drove off together. Our open-air convertible fell dead last the second we accelerated. We kept riding like that all the way until sunset. When we finally spotted city lights, everyone was starving. They kept asking what we were going to eat tonight. "And where are we sleeping?" The driver casually replied he did not know. Everyone looked completely miserable. Can you blame them? But I instantly realized this was just another brutal part of the trial. When asked if we could leave, Scarface said we could do whatever, but we must wear this smartwatch. He wanted a guaranteed way to contact us. The other 4 stared at the watch, feeling totally messed with. I asked what time he would ping us tomorrow, and roughly where. The man gave a sleazy smile, saying he did not know. I nodded and left. The others ground their teeth, asking where I expected to find food and shelter. One of them looked highly suspicious. If we wander off too far, what if he makes us travel a massive distance tomorrow? What then? Gesturing around, I told them if they wanted to sleep here, go ahead, but I was not. I grabbed my rucksack and left. The other 4 hesitated. Though they knew how incredibly capable I was, we were not close, so they did not feel comfortable begging to tag along. After some thought, they also set off on their own. Once everyone was gone, the scarred man grabbed his radio. "Spire, this is Viper. Target group of 5 has split up. Starting the tracking protocol now." The radio crackled back, confirming that the real-time locations of all 5 targets were now streaming to his device. At 6 a.m. tomorrow, they would receive their first objective. Meanwhile, I was just casually strolling down the street. Walking from 7 p.m. to nearly 9 p.m., I finally spotted a rundown noodle stand run by an elderly man with only 1 customer. It was a middle-aged guy eating noodles, while scrolling on his phone, occasionally laughing out loud. I walk right up and ask the shop owner nicely if he could spare a plain bowl of boiled noodles for free. I offer to repair his broken gear in exchange. And seeing my worn-out clothes and huge backpack, the old man takes pity. But a rude customer on his phone instantly interrupts, telling the old shop owner to be extremely careful. He warns that scammers are everywhere, especially young, healthy guys who claim they can't even afford a cheap, $3 meal. The kind old man ignores him and tells me to sit down. Instead, I walk over and start repairing his light bulb and gas stove. In just a few minutes, everything is running perfectly, and the thrilled owner brings me a hot bowl of noodles with a fried egg. He praises my skills, warming my heart, but I tell him there is no need to thank me at all. It was the absolute least I could do. Now with a full stomach, I search for a place to crash, passing by an internet cafe. I walk inside, and the girl at the desk playfully asks if a handsome guy like me is here to game solo. I ask if they need PC maintenance, but she just frowns, demanding to know what my deal is. Right then, someone screams about the laggy connection, and you just know our main character has to step in. I offer to check it, claiming a tech background, while the girl gives me a highly skeptical look. I walk over, masterfully open up a command prompt, and suddenly the computer is running buttery smooth. Convinced by my skills, she points out other broken computers, and I fix them all in 15 minutes, saving them $100. Thrilled, she boots up a system for me and offers 3 free hours. I casually glance down at my smartwatch. I thank her, make sure my smartwatch has no tracking active besides basic calls, and log straight into the computer. Using IP spoofing, I secretly log into my Reborn dark web account. Immediately, I see my unread messages are maxed out past 99, so I simply post a single status update. I write that I am busy studying and to not bother me, setting my boards to auto-reject before logging off. My business is officially handled. Leaning back in the comfy gaming chair, I fall fast asleep. Little did I know, this tiny action of mine triggers a massive earthquake at the Lining City National Security Bureau. When the report hits that Reborn is online, Director Xiao slams his desk in sheer disbelief, shouting that it is impossible. Is he not currently in the military? He asks, but the stressed operative insists he definitely came online. Director Xiao's heart, which had been relaxed for months, instantly leaps straight into his throat. The agent pulls up the screen, showing the sentence saying he is busy studying and not to bother him. Director Xiao frowns, ordering a thorough investigation because there is no way he went through all that trouble just for a status update. After analyzing the data for ages, the operative finally speaks. He explains that Reborn shut down his communication channels so nobody can contact him, leaving Xiao staring in silence. Finally, he contacts my designated handler, immediately dispatching Agent Scarface Viper to my exact location. Learning Caspian Vance is at an internet cafe, Viper curses internally, wondering if this kid can ever give him a break. The handler barely lay down to rest before this recruit started stirring up a massive storm. He marches into the cafe, scanning row by row until he finally spots me sleeping soundly in a corner booth. The monitor still displays a game over screen, and grinding his teeth in pure fury, Viper wakes me up. My eyes snap open. Assembly time. The furious agent instantly drags me out to his car. He demands to know if I, Caspian, just logged onto the dark web. I immediately deny it with pure, mask-like innocence. He notes they just got intel that Reborn came online the very second I stepped out of the military base. When he asks for the reason, I pretend to think hard, suggesting the guy simply remembered his account and logged in to check it out. Viper narrows his eyes, glaring at me with absolute, intense intimidation. He asks what the objective is, but I just stretch lazily and suggest the hacker is retiring for good. Left totally helpless, Viper has no choice but to let me go, so I stroll right back inside to finish my nap. Meanwhile, the other recruits are having a profoundly miserable night. Having formed a squad, Cassian, Wyatt, and Zachary sneak into a mall food court, staring dejectedly at a half-eaten bowl of rice left behind. Cassian sighs that times are tough and they must eat to survive, though looking at the stranger's leftovers makes him incredibly nauseous. People walking past send disgusted, pitying glances directly at Cassian. He feels like he is sitting on a bed of nails, sickened by the thought of eating someone else's spit. It was honestly pretty gross, but Wyatt and Zachary did not care. They even started stealing food from each other's bowls. Zachary looked up from his scavenging for a second and asked if he had ever even had a girlfriend. Cassian froze. How did they know? Well, if you date, you kiss, so you share spit anyway. Zachary shrugged. Just treat this cold rice as relationship practice. Cassian was speechless like, thanks, really? He never imagined the budget version of love was eating someone's leftovers, but Wyatt had zero patience for his whining. Wyatt told him to be grateful they even had food, since scraps might be impossible to find in a few days. He heard that during jungle operations, elite forces eat anything they can catch. Frogs, giant spiders, you name it. Cassian shivered, asking if it was really that bad. Wyatt glared back with absolute seriousness. Yes, the body needs protein. You have to hunt down protein-packed bugs. Finally, under brutal peer pressure, Cassian closed his eyes and swallowed the rice whole. Zero shame. Wyatt and Zachary treated this garbage pile like a buffet. Once they cleared this table, they immediately moved on to grab desserts from another. Most of the other candidates ended up sleeping rough at cold train stations or subway entrances. The smart guys staked out convenience stores late at night, waiting for expired Odin to get tossed in the trash. The lucky ones snagged a couple of hot skewers. On day one of this trial, they tasted the cold, harsh reality of life. At 6 a.m. the next morning, our smartwatches suddenly go off. We had 30 minutes to reach the coordinates for our first task. I checked the map, it was 10 kilometers away. I instantly cursed. Viper knew. He definitely knew where I crashed yesterday. He did this on purpose, forcing me to clear 10 kilometers in 30 minutes. Sabotage, pure and simple. And my other teammates were not doing any better. After we split up last night, they slept outside a subway entrance near a street vendor selling fresh, grilled sausages. They literally stood there drooling, staring at her grill until she finally closed up shop. Taking pity, she gave them one sausage each, telling them that big, strong guys like them should not be out begging. The four did not care about the misunderstanding. They just devoured that meat like starving wolves. If anyone else offered them food, they would gladly accept the title of beggars. But unfortunately, nobody else showed up. They assumed the meetup point would be close to our parking spot. To their absolute horror, it was 7 kilometers away. Those four had to run for their lives. But not me. I checked my map first. I mentally mapped the absolute fastest route, making sure to avoid as many red lights as possible. Early morning joggers and seniors out walking only saw a blur of speed passing by. Was that a person? No way, right? My brain acted like a built-in GPS, tracking the route while continuously calculating my remaining run time. When my smartwatch warned me that I only had 5 minutes left, I snapped. I told the annoying system to stop ticking like a damn bomb. It immediately adapted, changing to flash once every 60 seconds. With 3 minutes left, I finally spotted the destination. Right then, my watch buzzed again. Failed to make it before the countdown hit 0, and you are disqualified. Seriously, they are not playing around. Talk about ruthless, right out of the gate. But just as I neared the finish line, a red light caught me. Why is this taking so long? Turn green already. Just as I was about to start screaming, it finally switched. My system countdown was at exactly 40 seconds. I bolted across the intersection, blowing right past my 4 wheezing teammates. Only 5 seconds left. I reached Viper first. I rested my hands on my knees, took one breath to recover, and immediately stood up looking completely normal. I was barely even breathing. Viper smirked at me, admitting I had a solid foundation since I was the furthest away. He said that logically, no matter my speed, I should not have made it. Seems he underestimated me. The other 4 barely scraped by the deadline. The second they crossed, they collapsed onto the dirty asphalt, groaning in total agony. They gasped that they were dying, but Viper just coldly looked down at the wrecked trainees. He ordered them to get up and stop wasting time. Their first goal was to get 5 phone numbers. The guys stared blankly. Just ask anyone? Nope. Viper told them he would personally choose the targets. He ordered them to turn and face the shopping mall behind them. At 6:30 a.m., the plaza was basically dead. Viper paused. Forget it, he muttered, postponing the task because there were barely any people out there yet. Way too boring. The mall opens at 8 a.m., but the supermarket opens early at 7:30 a.m. That 30-minute window is when the big discount deals hit the shelves. Memorize every single discount price today. Because I am holding the digital master list. I will spot check you. Be back here at 8 a.m. I thought we were getting a written intelligence exam, not some weird fieldwork. This practical test was totally unexpected. Looking over, my 4 teammates are completely drowning in despair. Man, what is even the point of memorizing grocery prices? How does this help us join the special forces? We literally survived the wild yesterday, and now we are cataloging cheap vegetables. Is he just trying to torture us with thoughts of food? I almost tell them this is a test of memory and quick reflexes. But then I think, you know what? Let it go. Let them keep thinking I am just an annoying busybody. I watch my 4 teammates drag their exhausted bodies toward the supermarket doors, their faces completely pale with the dread of this pop quiz. But get this, memorizing a few dozen prices is absolute child play, compared to mapping out complex war zones or cracking black market codes in a split second. I calmly stretch my neck and step through the sliding glass doors just as the clock hits 7:30 a.m. From the street, Viper tracks my movements with those cold, scarred eyes. It is a silent promise that this weird grocery run is only the warm-up to a brutal nightmare. The real Special Forces selection starts right now. And as my cheat system hums quietly to life in the back of my head, I cannot help but smirk.